I reminded him that I had tried to wake him up earlier, and his alarm had been blaring too. "Now please eat your breakfast," I said as he rubbed his eyes and shuffled to the dining table. He immediately started complaining about the eggs. "Hey Grace, this egg is too runny. I can't eat this unless it's well done. Make it over," he demanded. I was caught hanging laundry and tried to hold back my irritation. "Then don't eat it," I snapped. "Why would you say that? And this coffee is scorching hot. Mom always got the eggs and coffee just right." All right, I sighed, quickly redoing the eggs and letting the coffee cool. He ate hurriedly but left his plate on the table, rushing towards the restroom. "Wait up, you should clean up after yourself." "I'm short on time," he called back, dismissing his responsibility, even though the breakfast delay was his fault. Annoyed, I paused my makeup routine to clean up the dishes. While I was picking out my outfit, he called out again. "Grace, over here. Help with my tie." There he stood, the tie hanging limply around his neck, looking utterly helpless. "Seriously? You can't even tie your tie? What did you do before we got married?" "Mom always did it," he replied sheepishly. With a deep exhale, I knotted his tie, and somehow, we both managed to leave the house. This had become our routine. He never helped with any housework, and it felt like I was juggling everything and babysitting him too. Every time an issue arose, it was always, "Mom did it this way," or "with Mom, it went like that," always referencing his mother, Michelle. This routine dragged on for a year, and as the pressures mounted, thoughts of divorce began to creep into my mind. My father's insistence that marriage is forever echoed in my mind, tempering my frustrations. However, an unexpected hiccup at work led to my being assigned a week-long business trip starting the next day. When I broke the news to my husband that evening, he paused his video game, clearly surprised. "Hold up, a business trip for a whole week? It's out of my hands. Work's calling," I explained. "No way, who's going to cover for you here for a week?" he asked, irritation seeping into his tone. "You'll have to step up. It's about time you got a grip on the household duties," I responded. At that, he set down his controller and locked eyes with me. "Isn't a wife supposed to care for her husband and the house? Are you just bailing on that?" His question dripped with outdated expectations. "Seriously? That's such old-school thinking. We both have jobs. We should be a team." "I don't see it that way," I countered. "Well, Mommy was always on top of things at home," he retorted. I couldn't help but point out, but she was a stay-at-home mom. Honestly, it's kind of odd to hear an adult man constantly talking about his mommy. He bristled at this. "What's your deal, taking shots at me and my mom?" "I'm not, but let's be real. You're a mama's boy. This is how you see me? You think you can talk to me like that?" His defensiveness escalated, but I had reached my limit. "Face it, you're a mama's boy. You can't get up without help, can't even tie your tie, and won't lift a finger around the house. You're constantly comparing me to your mom. For once, handle your stuff." "Really? You're going to come at me like that?" That's why I was iffy about marrying someone older. I should have sided with Mommy and chosen a younger, perkier girl, he shot back. His words struck a nerve, and our conversation spiraled into a major blowout. "Even joking, you shouldn't say stuff like that." "We're married," I said, trying to anchor the conversation to the commitment we had made to each other. The tension between us was palpable, revealing the deep rifts that have formed in our relationship. When my husband hinted at divorce during our heated argument, I was taken aback. With a smug tone, he challenged, "You can't possibly want a divorce, can you? You wouldn't want to be labeled divorced. And think about what your dad said about sticking together." But then he sharply added, "Well, I just did. If you go on this business trip and leave me here alone, I'm seriously considering a divorce." With those words, he stormed off to our bedroom, leaving me stunned. Despite the shock, the idea of divorce lingered in my mind, something I had previously struggled with, as I didn't want to disappoint my parents. Yet now, it seemed like a viable option to contemplate seriously. With these heavy thoughts, I went to bed. Bright and early the next day, I was up preparing for my trip. The fallout from our argument was still fresh and weighing on me, but I had work commitments to attend to. I nudged Edward, who was still nestled under the covers. "I'm heading out. You better wake up or you'll be late for work." His response was a sleepy, unintelligible mumble. Rolling my eyes, I left. A few hours later, a text from him popped up on my phone. You barely tried to wake me. Now I'm running late. Did you really go on that trip? I quickly texted back, I did wake you up, and yes, I'm on my trip. I'll be back in a week. He read my message but didn't reply. Mid-trip, I decided to call my parents to update them about Edward's behavior and share my growing inclination towards divorce. I braced myself for a lecture, unsure of how they would react to the possibility of our marriage ending. The call was going to be a difficult one, but it was necessary to seek their advice and perhaps their understanding of my situation. Their response took me by surprise. We had no idea he behaved like this. Take your time to think, but don't force yourself to stay in a situation that isn't right. Always remember, we are in your corner, no matter what you decide. Their words of unconditional support brought tears to my eyes. Upon returning from my business trip, I knew a serious conversation with Edward was inevitable. If he didn't show signs of change, I was ready to consider divorce more seriously. My mind was abuzz with thoughts as I walked into our house late in the evening, only to find Edward wasn't home yet. As I looked around, a set of signed divorce papers and a note on the table caught my attention. The note read, "Since you ditched the housework, I'm heading back to my folks. Check out the divorce papers and think things over." Reading this, my initial reaction was rage. How dare he threaten me with divorce? But as my anger subsided, I began to see the situation differently. Maybe this was a sign that ending things might not be such a bad idea after all. With that realization, I decided to file the papers. When the divorce was finalized, I felt as if a heavy weight had been lifted from my shoulders. That evening, I went to bed and slept more soundly than I had in a long time. The next morning, as I enjoyed a peaceful cup of coffee, the door swung open, and in walked Edward, clearly upset. "Why didn't you come to my parents' place to apologize? What's gotten into you?" he demanded, his temper flaring. Then, noticing the empty spot where the divorce papers had been, his expression shifted from anger to shock. "Hold on, where are the divorce papers?" "Oh, I filed them," I calmly responded. "You did what?" He looked as if he had been slapped. "You went through with it." "Thanks for signing them. It made everything smoother," I said. "You can't be serious. Did you go all the way? Have you lost your mind?" he exclaimed, unable to hide his astonishment at my decisiveness. Seeing how composed I remained, he lost his cool completely. "That's it. I'm calling my parents." "Sure, knock yourself out," I replied, undisturbed by his threat, knowing I had made the right decision for myself. An hour after the confrontation with Edward, his parents, Michelle and Arthur, arrived at our apartment. Michelle immediately spotted me and dramatically exclaimed, "You! How could you just divorce Edward like that? What's your deal?" I responded coolly, "If he had the divorce papers all filled out and ready to go, doesn't that suggest he wanted out? Is that a problem?" "How can you be so bold when you're just his wife?" she countered, but before the situation could escalate further, Arthur intervened with a firm "enough." The room fell silent. Arthur turned to me. "Grace, can you walk us through what happened?" I agreed and began detailing the ongoing issues, our argument before my trip and the divorce papers Edward had left for me. I was at my wit's end. It seemed like he wanted a divorce, so I went with it, I explained, maintaining eye contact with Arthur. After a moment of consideration, Arthur was about to speak when Edward interjected, "Mommy, Dad, come on. Can't you see she's out of line? Tell her off." Michelle quickly sided with Edward. "Oh, Edward, my poor baby. She's so hasty. You should reverse the divorce right now." "There's no reversing it. Our divorce is final. We're strangers now," I stated firmly. Michelle's face turned red and she opened her mouth to respond, but once again, Arthur cut her off. "Zip it, Michelle." He then apologized to me for Edward's behavior. Turning to Edward, whose eyes were bulging with surprise, Arthur continued, "You bonehead. I knew you had issues, but this is next level. Using divorce papers as a threat? Unbelievable. You had it coming." Michelle tried to interject, but Arthur didn't let up. "It's partly on you, Michelle. You spoiled him. Watch out. If you keep this up, I might divorce you too." The tension in the room was palpable as Arthur confronted the reality of the situation, leaving Edward and Michelle at a loss for words. After the intense discussion, Michelle was visibly shaken, her thoughts lingering on the unexpected threat of divorce from Arthur. She murmured to herself, visibly troubled. As Arthur turned his attention back to me, His expression was marked by sincere regret. "Grace, I deeply regret the trouble our clueless son has caused you. It's clear he has a lot to learn. Please move on and find happiness in your life," Arthur implored with genuine concern. Thanking Arthur for his understanding, I watched as he left, taking a dejected Edward with him. It wasn't long before the news spread throughout our circle. Arthur had decided to cut financial and emotional ties with his son, a drastic step meant to push Edward towards self-sufficiency. Edward's life took a downward spiral shortly thereafter. He moved into a modest, somewhat neglected apartment, his first time living truly by himself. The transition was far from smooth. His new home quickly descended into chaos, a visible representation of his disorganized personal life. With no one to depend on and habitual tardiness, Edward soon found himself unemployed, his inability to adhere to a schedule finally catching up with him. Simultaneously, the dynamics within his family deteriorated further. Michelle, who had always been intricately involved in Edward's personal affairs, overstepped boundaries one too many times, which led to a serious fallout with Arthur. Ultimately, this resulted in their separation. Michelle ended up moving in with Edward, each of them struggling to find stable footing. They scraped by with low-end jobs, their lives marked by a series of unfortunate events and poor decisions, with no clear path to improvement visible. On the other hand, my own life took a markedly different turn. Free from the daily stresses and emotional drain of my relationship with Edward, I found myself alone in our condo, which now felt surprisingly spacious and full of potential. With renewed energy and focus, I dedicated myself to my career. The absence of Edward's negative influence allowed me to excel at work, and my professional life flourished as a result. Feeling liberated and optimistic, I embraced my newfound independence. My living space not only felt more open but became a true sanctuary where I could relax and plan for the future. The improvement in my work life was palpable, and I approached each day with a sense of excitement and anticipation for what lay ahead. The contrast between my thriving existence and the downward trajectory of Edward and Michelle's situation was stark. While they were no longer a part of my life, the lessons learned from our time together resonated deeply, reinforcing my commitment to personal growth and happiness.
Dee is retiring, so to celebrate, I'm taking our parents to Germany starting today. I'm borrowing your platinum card for the trip and plan to live it up on your credit card. What a trip this will be. What are you talking about? Just what I said. No, I don't get what you mean by just what I said. Please explain. We need to hurry. I get it. We'll go soon. Sorry, I have to move on now. I'll hear the details when I get back. Just one thing, though, the credit card won't work. Huh! My jobless husband Jeremy took my credit card to take our parents-in-law on a trip. I put up with a lot from Jeremy, but this seems like the perfect opportunity to teach him a lesson. When he returns from the trip, he'll have some big regrets. I'm Maria, a 35-year-old company employee. After graduating from a prestigious university, I landed a job at a major company and have received good evaluations. Despite being only 35, my income is enough to support Jeremy, who doesn't work, and a child if we had one, but that's hypothetical. We've been married for 6 years and don't have kids yet, though we're thinking about it soon. Blessed with a good job and income, I should be happy in my newlywed life, but I'm not. The part about having a child is hypothetical, but Jeremy not working isn't. I'm not hungry for dinner because I ate snacks. That's fine, but what about your job search? I didn't go for an interview today. Just stayed home looking at job websites. Jeremy quit his job a year ago and has been job hunting since. To be precise, he's been working part-time but doesn't stick with any job for long. He starts a job, quits soon after, relaxes for a while, then looks for another part-time job. You're looking at part-time jobs again, aren't you? I'm looking at both full-time and part-time. Why don't you stop looking for part-time jobs and focus on finding a full-time position? I know, but there is a right time for everything. I wish Jeremy would find a steady job, but there's a reason he can't be pushed too hard. He quit his last job because of a conflict over work policies with his boss. That boss was notoriously difficult in the office. Jeremy stood up to the boss as the office representative, backed by his colleagues. But when the conflict escalated, his colleagues sided with the boss, not with Jeremy. As a result, Jeremy lost his boss's approval, felt betrayed by his colleagues, and found it hard to stay, so he left the company. Jeremy, dinner's ready? Can you bring it here? After quitting, Jeremy became reclusive, staying in his room. After about 3 weeks, he started coming out and helping with household chores. I'll do the dishes. Really? Thanks. Then it's all yours. Yeah, I've got nothing but time, Jeremy said, smiling, but it didn't seem genuine. Yet after another 3 weeks, he started job hunting. I have an interview today. Is it your top choice? Yeah, I'm going to get this job and start over. I'm rooting for you. Do your best. A month after quitting, Jeremy began job hunting in earnest. But even after a month, he couldn't find a job. Why am I always rejected? Damn it, it's all my previous company's fault. Don't get frustrated. You'll find something good. Of course I'm frustrated. I did nothing wrong. Jeremy might not be entirely blameless, but what happened at his last job wasn't entirely his fault either. Still, quitting because of interpersonal issues doesn't look good to potential employers. It's like I can't do anything right anymore. That's not true. You have an interview tomorrow. Let's work on your resume. It's pointless. I'm not going tomorrow. Repeated rejections wore Jeremy down, but after a while, he became defiant. One day, I came home to find torn-up resumes on the living room floor. Knowing the interview didn't go well, I chose my words carefully. Can you throw that trash in the bin? I'm done. Done with what? Job hunting. We can live on your income, right? I don't need to work. Indeed, we could live on my income alone. Some people don't work and do a great job as full-time homemakers, but that's not Jeremy's situation. He's just avoiding unpleasant realities. I understand his reluctance to work after the bad experience at his last job and the unsuccessful job hunt, but we need to address this issue head-on. I decided to be patient with Jeremy for a while. Jeremy, you still haven't found a job. What's your plan? I've worked hard before. This is just an extended break. I'm not just resting. I'm studying for the future. That's good to hear. Living near my in-laws, Jeremy's mother, Linda, and father, Brandon, started visiting us more often after he quit his job. They were probably worried about him. Hearing that Jeremy was preparing for his next job, they seemed relieved, but that was a blatant lie. The beer will run out today. Can you buy some on your way home? It's running out again? You drink too much. Try to cut down a bit. Fine. I won't ask you again. I'll buy it myself. Jeremy wasn't studying or job hunting. He spent his days watching TV and drinking beer. He probably didn't want others to know he was unemployed. If I told my in-laws the truth, it might hurt Jeremy too much, so I decided to stay silent about whatever excuses Jeremy made. But he stopped job hunting for over 5 months, and I finally decided to speak up. Jeremy, maybe it's time to start job hunting. You seem more settled now. What? It's been less than half a year since the incident at my last job. You want me to work again after what happened? I just thought the break was a bit long. Stop nagging. You can't understand my feelings since your job is going well. I have my own struggles, you know. Everyone has work problems and relationship issues. We all try to solve them. Let's work through this together. I get it. I'll look for a job, okay? Jeremy walked out in the middle of the conversation. My words seemed to have hurt him, but him agreeing to job hunt seemed like progress. I decided to apologize when he was feeling better. I got a job because of your nagging. That's great. Where at? At a nearby supermarket. So you'll need to learn and work hard, right? It's just part-time. No need to work too hard. Part-time or not, even part-time is a job. Do you have a problem with that? I wanted to say something to Jeremy, but maybe a little work could be a step toward his recovery. I decided to watch and see. I'm home. Jeremy, you're back. How's the job? I quit the supermarket part-time. Why? It hasn't been that long. A college student there was being bossy, telling me to always put the vegetable boxes at the bottom in storage. It felt like harassment. That student was likely just teaching Jeremy the job. In the workplace, even a college student is a senior. Jeremy kept finding and quitting jobs, unable to stick with any. So Jeremy has been unable to keep a job for long, and it's already been a year. Jeremy, what job are you doing now? I'm working part-time at a pub. I've never worked in food and beverage before, but it's interesting, and I think I finally found my calling. Really? That's great. But isn't the income from a part-time job in a restaurant kind of low? That's fine. I'm currently apprenticing, aiming to go independent. So you plan to own your place someday? Exactly. The income's small now, but I'm working hard for my goal. Then take this. Treat yourself to something nice for once. Jeremy still put on a good show in front of his parents, but as always, it was all lies. He quit the pub job 4 days after this conversation, lying and even taking allowance from his parents. This time, I couldn't help but feel disappointed in my husband, so I decided to be firmer than before. Hey, Jeremy. Later, please. I'm at a good part in the movie. You can pause it. I grabbed the remote control from the table, paused the movie, and forced a conversation. It's just pressing when you pause at the best part. What is it? Jeremy, you're 38, right? You know that's prime working age. Don't you think about the future? Spending all day at home drinking and just watching TV. The future? There are plenty of 38-year-old not working. Many people enjoy life without a job. True, work isn't everything, but those people have something else they're dedicated to. Do you have something like that? Yeah, you're upset about me not working. I'll look for another part-time job. Jeremy seemed intent on only working part-time, considering his reasons for leaving his job and his struggles with job hunting. I had been careful not to hurt him, but it was time for Jeremy to bounce back. I needed to be stricter. One day at work, I got a text from Jeremy. Dad's retiring, so we are going to Germany to celebrate. Starting today. Borrowing your platinum card. Got to splurge on your credit card. I panicked and called him immediately. What do you mean, a trip? Just what I said. I don't get it. Just what I said. Please explain. So many things are wrong here. It's fine to celebrate Brandon's retirement, but he should have consulted me before using my money and borrowing the credit card more like stealing. And why am I paying for a trip to Germany that I'm not going on? Jeremy was probably bragging to his parents, claiming the money was from his savings. My credit card. Thinking about it infuriated me, but one thing Jeremy said caught my attention. You said you borrowed a credit card. The one from our house. Yeah. Why do I have a platinum card? Some people think you need a high income for it, but that's not true. Credit history, stable income, and other factors matter, and it's attainable in your 40s. The annual fee is high, but I use it for the benefits and points. However, that credit card is in my wallet. So you took the credit card from home? Yeah, so I'm counting on you for the payment. Jeremy, elated about his trip to Germany, is speaking to me in a provocative tone. I have been patient with Jeremy for a long time, but this seems like a good opportunity. Jeremy thinks he's clever taking my credit card and being all cheerful, but he's in for a surprise. What are you doing? We need to go. Got it. I'm coming. Sorry, I need to move on now. I'll hear the details when I get back. Just one more thing, the credit card you took won't work. What? That can't be right. It's in Maria's name, and the expiry date is this month. It's short, but it shouldn't be a problem. You're lying, right, Maria? You're lying to stop me from using the card, aren't you? Such a lie is easy to see through. Yes, it expires this month. That's why I have already received a new credit card. What does that mean? So I have 2 credit cards to use for a while now. Sometimes with my credit card, when the new one is activated, the old one stops working. And I've already started using the new card, so the one you took won't work. You're kidding, right? You think it's a lie? If you don't believe me, I can send you the URL to the credit card website, or you could just try using the card. It would be amusing to see you try to pay with a card that doesn't work. This credit card really won't work. Hey, hurry up. I hear his parents calling him from the background of the phone call, but Jeremy, realizing the credit card won't work, seems too flustered to hear them. What should I do? I told them I'd pay for everything except the round-trip travel. Oh, they covered the flight? Yes, Dad felt bad about having all the trip costs covered. What should I do? I'm about to take a cab, and I don't even have money for that. That's not my problem. You said you would pay for everything but the flight. If so, using my credit card in the first place was wrong. Pay with your own money. How can I? I don't have any money. Right, Jeremy, you haven't been working seriously. It's your fault for trying to look good taking your parents on a trip without money. I'm at work, so I have to hang up now. I just wanted to tell you about the credit card. Wait, I hung up and returned to work. Jeremy, unable to pay even for the cab, would have to be honest with his parents. That night after I finished work, I got a call from Laura. I heard from Jeremy. He tried to pay with your credit card and lied about working. Sorry for the trouble. No, don't apologize, Laura. I'm sorry for the inconvenience about the credit card. Are you okay with the money? We'll cover this trip's cost when we get back. I'll make Jeremy apologize and find a job immediately. I'm sorry, Laura, but I'm considering divorcing Jeremy. Divorce because of this? It's part of it, but Jeremy has been taking money from me for a while. What? I stopped giving Jeremy money to curb his drinking. He started a part-time job and bought his own alcohol, but the salary from part-time work shouldn't be enough for daily drinking. Jeremy was taking money from my wallet to buy alcohol. Over a year, he repeatedly stole amounts ranging from $7 to $70. The sum became significant. I had been strict with Jeremy, hoping he would eventually turn things around, but when he stole my credit card for his trip, it wasn't just about $75 anymore. This leap in the amount he took convinced me that he had no intention of improving. I respect your decision. Should I tell Jeremy about the divorce? Could you just tell him I want a divorce? We'll discuss the rest when he returns home. About an hour later, the next morning after my call with Laura, Jeremy called. He must have heard about the divorce from Laura, but I had asked her to wait until he was back to discuss it. Too exhausted, I had decided not to answer his call. The next morning, after returning from work, I found Jeremy at home. He had cut his trip short. I'll work properly now. Please don't leave me, he pleaded. As I entered the living room and saw Jeremy, he immediately apologized. His regrets seemed sincere, but came too late. He had a whole year to change, yet still asked for another chance. I had warned him repeatedly, yet he squandered every opportunity. I'm not going to give Jeremy another chance because he gave up on me. My mind is made up. Can you leave? Please don't say that. If you don't leave, should I call someone to help you pack your things? I'll move out only if you can afford the rent here. Jeremy fell silent. He didn't even have the money for next month's rent, let alone an income. My words and the reality of the impending divorce made him realize the severity of his situation. With nothing to take, Jeremy seemed to be leaving the house, probably heading to his parents' place. I thought about asking if he had money for transportation, but Jeremy isn't a child. He should manage his own affairs, money or not. I sadly watched Jeremy leave the house. After leaving, Jeremy went to his parents' house. Later, I received a call from Linda. My parents-in-law let Jeremy stay for one night, but then asked him to leave the next day. They thought he might become too reliant on them if he stayed. Creating a situation where he must fend for himself was perhaps their intention. It must have been painful as parents to send their son away, but they made a tough decision for Jeremy's recovery. Kicked out from his parents' home, Jeremy came back to our house, pleading with me. Please help me. I've got nowhere to go and no money. That's the result of your own actions. You need to handle it yourself. Everyone deals with their hardships. Maybe sometimes it's necessary to ask for help, but all you have done in the past year is abandon your responsibilities and do as you please. I didn't let Jeremy into the house and turned him away from the doorstep. The divorce eventually went through. Jeremy was reluctant, but with the support of his parents, it happened quicker than expected. I have no idea what happened to Jeremy after we split up. He's probably still jumping from one job to another and making excuses for himself. I used to think I'd feel lonely without him, but to my surprise, I didn't feel lonely at all. Instead, I felt a weight lifted off my shoulders. Living with Jeremy had been incredibly stressful. His attitude and constant need for reassurance kept me on edge. I was always walking on eggshells, afraid of saying something that might upset him. Now, without him around, I don't have to worry about that anymore. Without Jeremy, my life has become much more comfortable. I hadn't realized just how much of a burden our relationship had been. I was constantly trying to support him, both emotionally and financially, and it drained me. Now, I can focus on myself and my own well-being. I'm relieved that I didn't let Jeremy drag me down with him. I was always trying to help him, hoping he would change, but it never happened. Letting go of that responsibility has been freeing. I no longer have to cater to anyone else's needs or deal with anyone else's problems. I can finally live my life on my own terms, without having to accommodate anyone else. It's a fresh start, and I'm embracing it fully. I have more time for myself, more energy to pursue my own interests, and a clearer mind to think about my future. I'm grateful for this new chapter in my life, free from the stress and worry that Jeremy brought into it. Jessica saw you at the restaurant bar, planning a trip with another woman. Oh, I see. So what? Even when caught cheating, my husband Brian wouldn't drop his defiant attitude. In that moment, everything we had built over 17 years fell apart. In this day and age, I was a full-time homemaker, and we were living with his parents. Just like every other year, I had given up the job I loved at a publishing company where I felt fulfilled. Now, I spent half of the week taking my parents to the hospital and adjusting meals according to everyone's schedule. I was living a life much like a housemaid after getting married. I had no time for myself. The only place I could relax was in our bedroom, even in this spacious house. Despite all this, I had chosen this life because I wanted to be with my husband. The option of leaving never crossed my mind. So when my unfaithful husband said, "We can get a divorce," I was at a loss for words, feeling more amazed than angry. This is the story of me, Nicole Richie, turning 45 this year, leaving my husband Brian, with whom I lived for 17 years, and starting my life from scratch. It all started 3 months ago on the 23rd. That day was payday for him, who worked at an electronics manufacturer. Usually, his salary would be deposited into our joint account. I would use that money to pay our monthly bills and give him an allowance in the evening. However, 3 months ago, his salary wasn't deposited into our joint account. I thought there must have been some technical glitch, so when he got home in the evening, I asked him about it. "What do you mean you changed the deposit account without saying anything to me?" He had switched the account to his personal one. "But what about our payments? These bills are due on the 25th. I couldn't keep up with the sudden change and just thought of the immediate concern. Without thinking, he said, "Just let me know how much you need, and I'll transfer that amount into the joint account." He said this while taking off his suit with his back turned to me. He wouldn't even look me in the eyes. "So why did you change it?" I couldn't think of any reason for this. In the 17 years we'd been together, we had never changed the account. We were saving in our joint account, so it wouldn't be a problem if his transfer was late. It's not like our bills would fall behind. Maybe I didn't need to press the issue, but I couldn't help wondering. Why didn't he trust me with our finances? Did I do something wrong? I didn't remember overspending, but I thought maybe I had unknowingly upset him. If so, I needed to apologize. That's what I thought when I asked him, but he seemed to think I was blaming him. He threw his freshly removed shirt onto the couch and glared at me. "It's my hard-earned money, isn't it?" "Yes, it is. But why do I need your permission to use it?" I couldn't understand his words. I'd been giving him a $800 allowance every month, but that was just a temporary arrangement. If his expenses piled up, I would give him more. I asked him what he spent his money on, but I never refused to give him more when he needed it. As a stay-at-home wife, there were times when I asked if I could buy something I wanted, but the reverse never happened. "I don't need dinner today." "But I already prepared it." "Never mind, I'll eat out." He got bent out of shape, grabbed his car keys, and went out again. He had seemed strange for the past 17 years, but we never had issues over money. Suddenly, he starts saying it's his money. While cleaning up the food I had prepared, I was upset at my husband's selfish actions. I was frustrated that, despite having food at home, he chose to eat out anyway. Now he was in charge of the finances. From that moment, he began eating out every night and coming home late at night after I fell asleep. Also, the number of days he told me he was staying at work overnight increased. The fight had completely escalated. Even when we were together, we didn't talk more than necessary. As time passed, it was hard to find a chance to make up, and I started blaming myself. We'd never had a fight last this long before. It was a minor issue that he changed the bank account without consulting me. If he wants to manage the finances, that's fine. After about 3 weeks of awkwardness, I began to reconsider things. Then one day, I received a message from Jessica, who is my colleague. When I worked as a publisher, my colleague Jessica reached out to me. "Hey, how are you doing? How about lunch soon?" We used to go out for drinks after work and spend our days off together when we were single. Now, we both have families, so we don't contact each other as much, but we try to meet at least once or twice a year. Her invitation came at a good time, so I agreed readily. 3 days later in the afternoon, she and I were sitting in a cafe in the next town. "So they moved into the care facility, huh?" "Yeah, both of them in the same place," I replied. She asked how things were going, and I told her about my parents-in-law moving into a nursing home a few months ago. "I know I shouldn't say this, but it's a good thing. It must be a relief for you," she said, looking pleased. She had been worried about me because I never had time for myself, so it seemed she was relieved now. "Well, I do have to get their clothes, visit, and accompany them to their doctor's appointments, but still my life has become a lot easier. This was the first time since I was single that I was able to casually make time to meet with a friend." "You're such a dutiful daughter-in-law. Is Brian still hands-off?" "Yes, he seems to want to do nothing on his days off. He never wanted to go anywhere on his days off. In these 17 years, we've never even gone shopping together. Her husband is diligent. He picks her up in his car when it rains and sometimes even does the shopping for her. He never changed at all." "Well, since I am a stay-at-home wife, at least he could take care of his own parents." She has never thought highly of my husband. We both had jobs when we got married, but he never helped with the household chores. There were days when I was too tired to do housework. He found it unbelievable and suggested I become a stay-at-home wife. I didn't want to quit, but I resigned as he suggested and became a full-time homemaker. Soon, I was asked to live with his parents, and I ended up taking care of them. The reason I couldn't talk back to my husband was because of the significant difference in our incomes. He is 7 years older than me. By that time, he already held a position at his company, and his income was more than double mine. "Can you earn as much as I do? If you can, I wouldn't mind quitting," he'd say, making me speechless. I discussed my true desires of not wanting to quit my job with her. I even cried on the phone, overwhelmed by having no time for myself. I understand if she holds a negative view of him because of my venting. After a while, the warm vegetable salad we ordered arrived. As she served it on smaller plates, she asked again, "So, how are things with him?" I thought for a while and nodded affirmatively. I'd actually come to discuss our big fight, but I didn't want him to be seen in a worse light. Jessica paused, holding the serving tongs and staring at me, who only managed to nod in response. Trying to keep my smile to not arouse suspicion, she stopped serving the salad midway. "I'm sorry, I asked it the wrong way. Nickel, things aren't going well with him, are they?" she said, as if she knew something. I was left flustered and unable to respond. She started talking about something that had happened a few days ago. That day, she was at a dining bar near her office for a work after party. When she went to use the restroom, she passed a man in the aisle who turned out to be my husband. He didn't seem to recognize her, so she decided against calling out to him. But noticing that he was in casual clothes made her wonder if he was with me. After leaving the restroom, she decided to take a look at where he was seated. She saw him having drinks with a woman who wasn't me. "Then I realized instantly he's cheating on you," she said. They were sitting close together, bodies touching as they drank. Was that really my husband? I couldn't believe it. That day, he hadn't come home due to working overtime, so there was no reason for him to be in casual clothes. Moreover, he seemed genuinely busy lately. Does he even have the time for cheating in his current state? Although we've been on bad terms recently, I can't imagine him resorting to cheating. I just don't see him as that kind of person. Sensing my thoughts, she sighed and added, "For the upcoming long weekend, he mentioned going to a place in Laguna Beach. He was showing information about the accommodations on his phone and mentioned something about a prime-grade steak dinner. You could probably find the hotel if you search from there." She started searching for the hotel on her phone. While at the cafe, I was still hoping that it was just her misunderstanding. However, as soon as I got home, I started looking through his clothes. I don't remember exactly how many clothes he has, so I wouldn't know what was missing. But I did notice that 3 or 4 of his favorite shirts were gone. Until last year, he would immediately wear them after washing, and they were always at the front of the drawer. Now, they were nowhere to be found, even after searching every corner, the back of the closet, and the drawers of rarely used cabinets. Literally everywhere. The only thing that came to mind was him working overtime, and even on weekends, due to his busy schedule. I remembered the look on his face when he told me he had spent a night in the company's restroom because he missed the last train. As I stood in front of the closet, I heard the sound of an incoming email from my pocket. It was a message from Jessica. The email included the URL of a hotel in Laguna Beach. As I stood there in a daze, I slowly pressed the link, and a stay plan with a dinner, including prime-grade meat, was displayed. I felt dizzy, like I was having a bad dream. There was a part of me that still wanted to believe in him, but I couldn't find his favorite shirt. That was a huge blow. 3 days later, on the Saturday before a long weekend, he was unusually at home, working with the TV on. I placed a cup of coffee near his computer and casually asked, "I haven't seen you wearing your favorite t-shirt this year." Even though he hadn't taken his eyes off the display, when I put down his drink, the sound of him typing on the keyboard suddenly stopped at my question. Then he said, "Yeah, I'll wear it sometime," making a point of looking at me as he responded. That was unusual. For the past month since that payday, he had been distant, but now, when asked about his shirt, he was making eye contact. "I looked for it, but I couldn't find it," I added. He replied, "Isn't it somewhere?" and then looked away, returning to his computer. Seeing his reaction, I couldn't help but feel suspicious. Despite saying his favorite shirt was missing, he showed no signs of being troubled. Normally, in this kind of situation, he would pretend to be upset just to make a point that I hadn't taken care of it properly, even if he really didn't need it. Last year, he kept complaining just because it hadn't dried due to the rain. Every bit of change made everything seem suspicious. When it comes to this, I can't control myself. I need clear answers, often pushing too far. "You're off for a long weekend, right?" Even though we hadn't made up after our last fight, I couldn't help but ask something more intrusive. Work from when? I don't know. There's a business trip. I might have a day off. Was this also a lie? I could only think it was. For the past 17 years, he always took time off during the holidays. Jessica's words about going to Laguna Beach and the prime grade steak crossed my mind. The story I heard at the cafe started to feel real, and I felt a surge of anger. Before I realized it, I said, "Business trip? You mean you're going to Laguna Beach?" He froze while staring at the screen. Slowly turning around, his expression changed. With a weary face, he squinted and glared at me, just like during our fight on payday. What the hell is going on? Rummaging around our room, pretending to look for clothes, he sighed heavily. Hearing his words, my lips quivered. I had rummaged through the room, but found nothing. I couldn't find the t-shirt. Yet he said I had rummaged, which means if I had looked more, I might have found something linked to Laguna Beach. I still wanted to believe, even while doubting. Jessica said she saw you at the wine bar. You and another woman were planning a trip. The things we had built started to crumble. Oh, is that so? I thought he would make an excuse, but reality was different. He wasn't flustered at all. He turned away with a defiant look. So, what's the point? He questioned. What did he want to hear? When I became speechless out of disbelief, he piled on words. Who do you think you are? I'm working hard to earn money so a stay-at-home wife can live comfortably. He yelled loudly, and my head started to ache. I placed a hand on my forehead and took a deep breath. I'm okay with getting a divorce, you know, he uttered. For the past 17 years, no matter what happened, no matter how hard it was, I had tried not to think about it. I was disappointed that he could say it without hesitation. From that day, he continued to ignore me. Even worse, once he knew I found out, he started making plans with her right in front of me, like, all right, I'll pick you up at 7 in the morning. The first time it happened, I was dumbfounded. Was he always like this? The person in front of me felt like a total stranger. Then the long weekend arrived, and on the day of his trip, I was in the car driven by Jessica, silently watching him cheat. Nicole, did you get a shot of him putting his arm around her waist just now? Yeah, I did. You should take as many photos as you can, okay? When I told her about my conversation with him on Saturday, she was furious and said I should break up with such a man. She also suggested that I take photos as proof of his cheating and claim for emotional damages. She spent her much-anticipated weekend for this very purpose. The woman he was cheating with looked to be in her late 25s or early 30s, slim and wearing revealing clothes. He kept stroking her long hair with a gentle smile on his face. Since he left the house, I'd also left promptly and watched everything. I saw him pick her up from her apartment, stop by a convenience store to buy breakfast together, and walk arm in arm in front of the splash zone and penguins. Now, they had just entered a hotel together. I took pictures of all of it with my phone, but each time I pressed the shutter, I pondered over what I was doing. I knew it, but seeing it with my own eyes made me really sad. Yet, I didn't shed a tear. I just stared at his joyful face. What do we do now? Shall we stay somewhere for the night? Jessica asked. No, let's head back, I replied. She seemed to plan to stay overnight, but I shook my head. I didn't want to waste money I had saved by scrimping on such a thing. I thought our life as a couple had finally started after my in-laws were placed in a nursing home. We hadn't been able to go on trips until now because we always took care of our parents first. But from now on, we wanted to create memories as a couple. The money I had planned to use for those times seemed wasted. I wondered if I had just wasted 17 years. If I knew it would turn out like this, I wouldn't have married him. If I knew I would go through this, I would have divorced him a long time ago. I shouldn't have had to endure and try so hard. Seeing his smile today for the first time in a while made me want to redo those 17 years. Though I wanted to cry, I couldn't and just kept sighing. Jessica had been quietly listening but suddenly started the car engine and checked the time. "What time is it now?" "After 4 o'clock," I replied. Then she called someone and smiled at me. "Hey Nicole, let's move out right now." "Huh?" "Ah, hello. Sorry to bother you during the long weekend. I appreciate your help." I was taken aback by her sudden proposal. She was about to start something, and I shook my head at her while she was on the phone, but she ignored me and went on saying it's all good. From that moment, Jessica was very energetic. While driving, she called various places on her car's navigation system and gathered people to come to my house. About 5 hours later, we got home in the evening. In just 2 hours, all my belongings in the house were packed into cardboard boxes. It was literally unbelievable. "I didn't want to talk about work since you didn't want to quit, Nicole, but I've transferred from a fashion magazine and now am the editor-in-chief of a local magazine." In the car, she made various calls to the moving company, a real estate agency, and also to a lawyer who knows Brian. She had expertly adjusted the schedule so that the service people's visiting times did not clash. I moved according to her instructions. Minute by minute, I packed only my valuables into a box, and the rest were done by the movers. The real estate agent introduced me to a house that could be moved into within a few days. For the time being, my belongings were sent to her house, and I ended up staying with her for a few days. After the truck packed with my things left, a lawyer visited me. They gave me advice about things like claiming alimony after divorce, guiding me towards a method that would be the least burdensome. I was amazed at how much could be done in just a few hours. I knew she was a very active person from when we used to work together, but her ability struck me as incredible. However, looking around the room that was now half empty, anxiety slowly began to creep in. He's definitely going to be mad. The cost of moving was surprisingly low. The studio apartment was affordable, and even the consultation with the lawyer was free. Yet, it was still costing money. I made these moves without telling him, so I'm sure he'll be furious when he gets back from his trip. As I felt our relationship falling apart, I became depressed. Jessica slapped my back and said, "Hey, being a homemaker is a respectable job too. The money you've saved from being frugal is also yours. Plus, it's his fault. He said he'd transfer the necessary money, right? So let's have him pay even for the cost of living on your own." After being strongly persuaded by her, I took one last look around the house. I remembered how hard it was to rearrange things in the early days. Now I realized I had put my toner on the bathroom vanity without hesitation, and the shoe rack was filled with my shoes. I had always seen myself as a maid, but maybe I had actually become part of the family. Imprinting the image of the home I had lived in for 17 years in my mind, I nodded vigorously at her. Then, on the last day of the long weekend, I left the house I had shared with him. I was still staying at Jessica's place when he called. I picked up with a trembling hand. "Where are you?" he asked with a grumpy voice. Without answering his question, I said the words Jessica and I had decided on beforehand. "You said you were okay with a divorce, right? And that you would transfer the necessary money. I am divorcing you. Please provide for the cost of me living alone." "What? Stop talking nonsense and come back." He seemed to think this was just a runaway. I cut off his voice and spoke my final words. "Please have your new partner take care of your parents from now on. Thank you for 17 years. While he was still talking, I hung up. He called back several times, but I didn't pick up. I felt guilty about ending things unilaterally like this, but looking back, I had always accepted his one-sided demands ever since we got married. So I tried to think it was fine, at least in this last moment. The following year was a whirlwind. I negotiated with him through a lawyer, and finally got a divorce with alimony and living expenses assured. I had no peace of mind until I found a job, but I've been working as an office clerk at a local factory and slowly buying what I need with my monthly salary. "Nicole, can you make the deadline this month?" "Yeah, I'll make it, but I think I'm going to barely make it by the deadline. I don't have time to chat on the phone. All right, I'll go now. You have your piece this month too. 5 months ago, Jessica, who manages our local magazine, added a new section about saving money. As a frugal person, I've been given the chance to write a couple of pages there every month. I had given up my dream to work in a publishing company, so her arrangements mean a lot to me now. I'm a writer, and I have 17 years of experience in budgeting as a homemaker, which I want to share wholeheartedly. I was able to make a fresh start, but then an unexpected call came in. It's good to hear your voice sounding well. Mother-in-law? My mother-in-law called me from her nursing home. I had said my goodbyes to her before my divorce, but I hadn't contacted her since then, so I was surprised she called. After talking about my father-in-law's advanced dementia, she updated me on my ex-husband's situation. What? He broke up? Yes, that's the case. He's foolish, isn't he? He was dumped before the divorce was finalized. I see. Seems like his relationship with that woman has already ended. Well, that's expected, isn't it? Any young girl would run if she had to deal with taking care of seniors. So who is at the home now? Brian. He ended up leaving his big corporate job, but he's trying with his complaints. He's such a fool. He was able to work because of his wife supporting him behind. He still doesn't talk about his own infidelity. Nickel, breaking up with him was the right thing to do. My ex-husband hasn't changed, but it seems like he's struggling a bit. I found myself a bit relieved by hearing that. My usually stern mother-in-law chuckled and said, "Nickel, thank you. I was planning to ask you to try again with him when I called, but your voice sounds so lively, so I decided not to ask." In the roughly 17 years we lived together, I never had such a long conversation with my mother-in-law. Our relationship wasn't bad, but it wasn't good either. I listened to her voice, assuming this would be the last time I'd hear from her, and I savored every word. "It turned out for the best," she said sadly, and my tears welled up. "It's been a year since my divorce. Everything has been going well, and I've managed to make a fresh start. However, I've always felt a lingering sense of regret. It's because I felt like I had wasted 17 years of my life. But then, with this phone call, my mother-in-law said thank you, and that she had planned to ask me to try again with her son. There's no chance of getting back together with my ex-husband, but hearing that from his mother made me genuinely happy. It felt like a validation of what I had done for those 17 years. I will never forget this phone call from her. Those 17 years were not wasted because now I believe that. After returning from a week-long international trip, I was surprised when my mother-in-law, Julie, called me sounding excited. She mentioned something about a $100,000 windfall we had apparently saved. Confused, I tried to remember any recent time I had saved such a sum. As a freelance jewelry designer, I do have a savings account for emergencies, but I don't keep large amounts of cash around, and my bank card was with me the entire trip. Normally, no one else has access to withdraw such a large amount from my account. Julie said, "He gave it to me, so I took it from the sideboard drawer. You guys are doing well, so it's fine." Her words left me bewildered. Before I could ask more questions, she quickly thanked me and hinted at counting on me for future financial help before hanging up. I was left puzzled about the missing $100,000 until Larry, my husband, came home and explained the misunderstanding. A month later, Julie bombarded me with numerous calls. At first, I ignored them, but the constant ringing eventually made me answer. Seeing over 50 missed calls on my phone was alarming. When I picked up, Julie's loud voice filled the room, accusing me of ignoring her. Her tone suggested she felt wronged, but to me, it was just the result of her assumptions. My life as Olivia, a 37-year-old busy freelance jewelry designer wanting children but overwhelmed by work, is shared with my equally busy husband, Larry. He used to have a corporate job, but now helps me manage my growing design business. Early in our marriage, My design jobs were rare, and we largely depended on Larry's steady income. Now, as my business flourishes, our roles and responsibilities have changed, but so have our challenges, like dealing with unexpected family misunderstandings about money. As I neared 34, my career as a jewelry designer was taking off, and I needed to organize my busy schedule better. Seeing the demands of my business grow, my husband, Larry, who was doing well at his company and about to get a promotion, made a bold choice. He quit his job to join me, using his management skills to help our business. Together, we got contracts with big international brands, improving both our work and personal lives. But with success came new challenges, especially with Larry's mom, Julie. She lived alone and saw our lives as luxurious, often asking us for money. "You always seem to be living so lavishly. I'm jealous," she would say. My job required me to attend product launches and dinners with executives, which Julie saw as fun outings. Her requests for money became more personal over time. "I'm going to throw a party for my friends soon. Can you give me some money for it?" she asked once. Even though it looked like we could afford it, keeping up our business image was expensive and full of obligations. We weren't living in luxury. These were necessary parts of our work. Julie, full of envy and sarcasm, didn't understand our expenses. "Dressed up beautifully, eating at expensive places, I envy you," she'd say. Despite my repeated refusals, Larry, being her son, would sometimes give in to her demands. If giving her a little money keeps her quiet, then it's worth it, he'd argue, finding it easier to appease her than have our work disrupted. But Julie's demands only grew. Recently, she wanted a new dress for an upcoming gathering. Just the other day, Julie came over and pestered Larry. "Wouldn't a three-piece suit work? We've been asked to buy clothes before," she said. "There might be cheaper options, but what Julie wants is certainly not cheap." I explained to Julie that it was a fancy party and she couldn't be the only one in old clothes. She also insisted on a matching bag, which left us frustrated. To handle her frequent requests, Larry had set up a credit card in Julie's name for her expenses. At first, she overspent a lot and Larry had to warn her. Even though he asked her to tell us before making big purchases, she kept spending too much. This constant demand for money left both Larry and me exhausted, trying to support family while keeping our business stable. I found an exquisite ring and couldn't resist buying it, though I regret not telling you first. Unfortunately, the bill was huge. Julie said, "If spending is going to be this uncontrolled, maybe it's best to take back the card." "We just can't cover these costs," Larry said. The credit card was in Julie's name, but Larry was the one managing and paying the bills. Julie treated the card as if it had no limit, not realizing every purchase had to be paid for. Since the money wasn't coming directly from her, she kept using it freely. To control her spending, Larry set a limit on her card. Julie stormed into our home one day, frustrated. "What the heck? I couldn't pay for my shopping the other day." "Why?" she complained. We explained that her excessive spending was straining our finances, so we had to lower her limit. "It's still enough, right?" Larry asked, trying to keep the peace. "But you two are still dressing up and going to fancy places. How is what I'm doing any different?" Julie protested, thinking our activities were just for fun. "That's part of our job, Julie. If that's a job, then what I'm doing isn't any different. It's unfair that only you two get to have all the fun," she argued. While it's true that our work involves attending events in luxurious venues, these are professional obligations, not leisure activities. Despite her misunderstandings, setting a limit on Julie's credit card seemed to calm things down. Occasionally, Julie would visit and complain to Larry, but overall, life continued without major disruptions. As the year ended, an exciting opportunity came up. A foreign brand manufacturer approached me with a proposal to expand our business by moving overseas. This prospect thrilled me as it could elevate me to the ranks of top-tier designers. Larry, ever supportive as my manager, was all for it. "It's a chance we have to take," he affirmed. However, the idea of moving abroad brought a new concern. Julie. Given her past behavior, it was a real worry that she might insist on joining us overseas. The thought of living internationally was exciting, but dealing with Julie's demands in a new country was daunting. When we told Julie about our plans to move overseas for work that weekend, she reacted as we expected. "I want to come too," she declared, assuming our move would be a long vacation. Larry tried to explain, "We're going there for work. It won't be as leisurely as you think." But Julie was skeptical. "You're trying to trick me. You're planning to live even more lavishly there without me watching," she accused. "We're not moving there permanently. We'll come back after our work is done," I explained, trying to calm her concerns. Yet she retorted, "You're saying that, but you're planning to leave me behind, aren't you?" Larry and I were both exhausted by this repetitive argument. In an attempt to compromise, Larry suggested, "Okay, we can't take you with us, but how about we pay for a week-long trip for you instead?" Julie perked up at this. "Really? Are you sure? We'll cover your flight and hotel, but you'll need to manage the rest," Larry affirmed, pleased for the moment. However, the peace was short-lived. A few days later, while Larry was busy with the move arrangements, Julie dropped by unexpectedly. "Hey Olivia, Larry said I want to shop over there too. Can you give me some money?" she asked. "What about the card that Larry gave you?" I inquired, knowing she had a designated credit card for such expenses. Julie's face fell. "That's the thing. Larry finally took it away from me the other day," she admitted. It seemed she had been reprimanded for overspending, and anticipating the challenges of managing finances with different currency rates overseas, Larry had confiscated the card. "I don't have that kind of money on hand either. I can't give you money without Larry's approval." "Can you ask him?" I suggested, knowing full well Larry's stance. "It's no use asking him. That's why I'm asking you," she pressed, raising her voice in frustration. Julie did end up going on a 15-day trip abroad, which I assumed Larry managed to fund somehow. Upon her return, she called me, brimming with excitement. "I'm back, and it was so fun." She shared tales of her sightseeing and dining adventures, though I hadn't asked. "And I overbought souvenirs and couldn't fit them in my suitcase, so I had them shipped here. Can't wait for them to arrive," she exclaimed. "That's nice," I replied, trying to keep my tone neutral despite feeling a bit overwhelmed. "Thanks to the money you saved up, I had a blast," she exclaimed. "Saved up money? What are you talking about?" I responded, puzzled and a bit alarmed, having no recollection of setting aside money for her splurge. "I found it in your house's sideboard drawer," she said, claiming she took $100,000. I was stunned. Why would such a large amount of cash be stashed away at home, especially not in a drawer where anyone could find it? Confused, I confronted her. "I'm not sure what money you're talking about, but taking it from our house without permission is theft, even if you're family. Do you understand that?" Julie's response was unsettlingly casual. "That's why I'm telling you now. I used it. Consider it a post-factum report," she declared unapologetically. "I have no idea about this money, but if you took it and used it without telling anyone, that's a crime. And if it was something Larry had set aside for an important transaction, it's even more serious," I explained, trying to make sense of the situation. Despite this, there hadn't been any noticeable disruptions in our business finances during her trip. "You two live so extravagantly, so why can't I have a little of that? Think of it as doing a favor for your parent. It's not a big deal, right?" she rationalized, showing a sense of entitlement that was hard to comprehend. "It's one thing to ask for help from your son and his wife, but this is not how you should behave after taking someone else's money," I replied, still in disbelief. "I'm glad you enjoyed your trip, but I'll have to discuss this with Larry when he returns. Larry will understand. After all, I'm his only mother, and $100,000 isn't much to him," she assumed. "All right, I'll pass the message along," I said, astounded by her lack of awareness. Later that evening, when Larry came home, he looked troubled. Olivia, do you know about the money I left in the drawer? He asked urgently. 20 days ago, I withdrew it from my bank account, and now it's gone. Keeping such a large sum in a drawer, didn't you think it was careless? He questioned. I needed cash immediately for an urgent payment. Do you know anything about it? It suddenly clicked. Julie's earlier call thanking me for the $100,000 and mentioning how much fun she had made sense now. It was Larry's money meant for a crucial purpose. Larry, today Julie called, thanking us for the $100,000 and saying she had a blast with it, I explained. I didn't understand what she meant until now. I explained, piecing everything together. So it was Larry's money, but what was such a large amount meant for? I asked. Hey, if it wasn't for a business payment, we've been doing bank transfers for a long time, right? Why cash all of a sudden? I questioned, trying to understand the whole situation and deal with the consequences of Julie's actions. I knew it was Larry's money that had disappeared, but I didn't know the full story. Julie had taken the money without telling us, and I needed to understand why. I asked Larry, puzzled by the situation. Larry began to explain. After he reduced the credit limit on Julie's card, she started secretly borrowing money from various sources, including consumer finance cards and credit cards she had opened without our knowledge. When Larry found out about her growing debt, he took away all her cards and withdrew cash to settle her debts directly, aiming to bypass the banking system to keep our business accounts clean and maintain trust with our partners. This was also partly a farewell gesture, as we were moving abroad and wouldn't be around to manage such issues for her. Larry explained, I planned to handle her debts discreetly to prevent our financial records from getting complicated. A month had passed since then, and as I was busy packing for our move, Julie's frequent calls became hard to ignore. When I finally took her call, her voice was filled with desperation. Why aren't you answering my calls? I've called so many times, she said, almost in tears. I'm sorry, Julie. I've been caught up with the move. What's going on? I asked, trying to remain calm and give her a chance to explain her side. It's not just one thing, it's everything. They're asking for payments almost every day. It's too much, Julie confessed, her voice cracking under the strain. Have you tried contacting Larry about this? I asked, hoping she had sought his help first. He seems to be blocking my calls. I can't get through to him at all. Olivia, you're my only hope now. Please help me, she pleaded. I realized then just how complex the situation had become. Julie's financial recklessness had led her into a maze of debt, and now, cut off from Larry's assistance, she was turning to me as her last resort. As we prepared to start anew in a foreign country, dealing with Julie's financial chaos demanded immediate attention before we could fully focus on our new beginnings. I was surprised by Larry's drastic approach toward his mother. If he had used the prepared funds to settle Julie's debts directly, this stressful situation might have been avoided. Now, Julie was overwhelmed with collection letters and constant calls from finance companies and lenders. It was like a scene from a dramatic film, something I never thought I'd see in real life. I'll talk to Larry, but I can't guarantee what he'll do. A son should help his mother in trouble, right? Please ask him for me, Julie pleaded at the end of our conversation. But with our business expansion coming up, our finances were already stretched thin. We couldn't afford to help Julie more, especially since she misused the money meant to settle her debts. When I told Larry about the call, he responded with a mix of fatigue and resignation. I had planned to sort things out before we left, but she squandered that chance herself, he said coldly. The money was originally meant to clear Julie's debts, but she spent it on a lavish trip, leaving no room for excuses. As Julie's calls continued, I followed Larry's lead and blocked her number. Part of me wished to help her. She was, after all, Larry's mother, but there was nothing I could do if he chose to detach from the situation. Meanwhile, our move overseas was fast approaching, and I still had a lot to pack. Amid the chaos, I discovered more troubling news. Julie had decided to sell her house to manage her debts. It turned out she had hidden even more liabilities than we knew. The total amount was so large that even after selling her property, she couldn't cover it all. Losing the family home where Larry had grown up was deeply upsetting. "Our family home is gone. Are you okay with that?" I asked, sensing his sadness. "How can I be okay? But there's nothing we can do," Larry replied, his voice tinged with sorrow. Losing the house where he grew up must have felt like a great loss, much like how I felt when I lost my parents' house early in life. Amid these complex feelings and the heavy task of packing, we had to come to terms with the fact that some situations were beyond our control. We needed to focus on our future as we prepared to start anew in a different country. The bittersweet reality of losing a family home struck me deeply. I watched the situation unfold with Larry. Unlike my past experiences, Larry had not only lost the house where his earliest memories were made, but also his emotional sanctuary, and all while his mother, Julie, was still alive. It's a hard feeling to describe the mix of loss and displacement, especially under such painful circumstances. It's more than just losing a building. It's about losing a part of your history and the comfort of a place to return to that no longer exists. Julie now lives in a modest apartment and faces the daily struggle of managing her debts. She works part-time, which is tough given her age. Job opportunities for older people are limited and often physically demanding and less rewarding. This new reality is a big change from her previous life of unchecked spending and financial freedom. Though I feel sympathy seeing her struggle, it's tempered by knowing her situation is the result of her own poor financial decisions. Life teaches us that actions have consequences, and Julie's case reaffirms that financial responsibility is crucial at any age. In our new environment, the business is thriving beyond our expectations. The move overseas has brought our brand into the international spotlight, with a flood of inquiries and offers from all over the world. Every new email and call brings potential for growth and collaboration, which is exciting but also very demanding. The success is thrilling but consumes our entire lives, leaving little room for anything else. Days blend into nights as we navigate time zones and cultural differences, trying to make the most of this golden opportunity. Despite the professional achievements, our personal lives are weighed down by our relentless schedules. The dream of expanding our family seems more like a distant vision, something we hope to revisit when the immediate demands lessen. Larry, who handles everything from logistics to client management, feels the strain deeply. As partners in both life and business, we often ponder our future and priorities, wondering how we can balance our professional goals with our personal desires. I look out of our apartment window, taking in the vast landscape. The neon lights blur into the night, mirroring the blur of our daily lives. This view, filled with promise and anonymity, is a sharp contrast to the familiar streets we once knew. This city, vibrant and relentless, is now our home. However, it starkly contrasts with the quiet, steady life we left behind. Our new life is exciting but also daunting. It's filled with endless tasks and decisions that challenge us at every turn. Navigating this new chapter, I often think about Julie's situation and the broader implications of our family and financial decisions. It's a continuous learning curve, understanding how deeply our choices are intertwined with our lives. Each decision, each sacrifice, and each success shapes not just our immediate circumstances, but also the legacy we leave behind. This view is full of promise and anonymity, a big change from the familiar streets we once knew. This city, vibrant and relentless, is now our home, but it is very different from the quiet. Our new life is exciting but also challenging, with endless tasks and decisions at every turn. As we navigate this new chapter, I often think about Julie's situation and how our family and money choices affect everything. We keep learning how our choices are deeply connected to our lives. As we build this new phase of our life, we try to balance achieving success and maintaining the relationships that define us beyond our business achievements. My name is Lauren, and I work as a nurse. My husband, Eric, is currently a full-time stay-at-home husband. Not long ago, Eric was working as a company employee, but he decided to quit his job because he didn't get along with his new boss. When Eric told me about his decision, I was quite angry that he quit without consulting me first. However, I tried to stay positive, thinking it might be better that he made the decision to leave before the job made him depressed. Although Eric doesn't bring in any earnings anymore, I have a steady job as a nurse. We are also fortunate to live in a house that my mother left to me when she passed away a few years ago. This means we don't have to worry about paying rent, which helps us make a good living without financial stress. Initially, I was very anxious and stressed about Eric not working. It felt strange and unsettling to be the sole breadwinner of the family. However, over time, I noticed that Eric was doing an excellent job with the housework. He took care of all the chores, cooked meals, and made sure everything was in order. Gradually, I got used to this new arrangement and even started to enjoy our life together more. One day, I came home from work to find my sister-in-law, Melissa, visiting our home. Eric greeted me cheerfully as I walked through the door. "Welcome home, honey. Hope you had a great day at work." "Oh, I think I forgot to tell you Melissa was coming over. I'm sorry I forgot to mention it." To be honest, I was a bit upset with Eric. He spoke as if he wasn't sorry about it at all. But then, I realized it had been a long time since I had seen Eric so cheerful and relaxed. "I see. It's totally fine. But from next time, could you please let me know in advance?" I replied, trying to stay calm. Eric smiled and agreed. He then turned to Melissa and suggested, "Maybe it's time for you to head home now." But Melissa didn't seem to agree. "Already? I don't want to go home yet. Since this house has enough space and room, I think I want to sleep over tonight," she said. I was taken aback by her response. It was unexpected and put me in a difficult position. I didn't want to be rude, but at the same time, I was hoping for a quiet evening after a long day at work. However, seeing Eric so happy and my sister-in-law being comfortable, I decided to go along with it for now. I smiled and said, "All right, Melissa, you can stay over tonight. But please, next time, let us plan it out a bit better." Melissa beamed with joy, and Eric looked relieved. We spent the evening together, and I tried to make the best of it, even though it wasn't what I had planned. I reminded myself that family is important, and making small sacrifices can lead to stronger bonds and happier moments. I looked at Eric's face, and in a panic, he told her, No, it's too sudden, Melissa. Please go home for today." When Eric said that, Melissa glared at me and went home angrily. "Why did Melissa come over today?" I asked. "It's quite a distance for her to come over." "Actually, Melissa got a divorce recently. She has no place to go, so she went back to my parents' place. But their apartment is small, and they asked her to hurry up and find a job and give them money. She feels very unwelcome, and I feel sorry for her," Eric explained. I listened to my husband and got frustrated because I couldn't understand why he felt so sorry for her. Then Eric said, "I am sorry about today. I have been searching but couldn't get a job, and I wanted someone to listen to me for a change, so I let her in." I was angry at Eric for his selfish behavior but realized he needed this. I said, "Okay, it's true that it's better to have someone than being alone in that kind of situation. But next time, make sure you call me and have her leave before I get back, okay?" I wondered if I was spoiling Eric too much, but I made sure he knew to inform me next time, so I stopped talking about it further that day. 5 days later, Eric texted me while I was at work. "Hey, hope your day is going great at work. Melissa is saying that she wants to come over if that is okay with you. You're working until 8 p.m. today, right? I will make sure to have her leave before 8 p.m. It had only been 5 days since she last came over. Eric said he would make sure Melissa leaves before 8 p.m., but I worried about how long she planned to stay. I said, "Fine, make sure she leaves as soon as possible." I really didn't want Melissa to come over, but seeing Eric so happy about it, I agreed. I wanted Eric to enjoy his time with his sister, so I didn't think much about it. At work, it was such a busy day that I totally forgot Melissa was coming over. When I finally got home, she was still there. "Huh, why are you still here?" I asked, feeling a bit annoyed. Eric noticed my bad mood right away and panicked. "I'm so sorry. I've been asking Melissa for advice and lost track of time. Melissa will leave now." Eric turned to Melissa, and she sighed, saying, "Yes, yes, I will go home now." She started packing her things, acting annoyed, and then laughed. Her attitude really bothered me, so I said, "What's up with her? This isn't her house. Doesn't she have any sense?" Eric defended her, "You're saying too much. She came all the way here just to help me." I thought they could have met somewhere else, but I was too tired to argue. "You're right. Sorry I said too much. I'm just too tired today. I need to rest." Eric looked like he wanted to say more, but I was exhausted, so I went to bed without another word. The next day, I had a day off and was relaxing at home. Eric came up to me and said, "About yesterday, I'm sorry. I was wrong. I wanted you and Melissa to get along, but it wasn't a good time." Since we hadn't talked much lately, I realized how much he wanted us to get along. "Oh, that's the reason. I've been so busy that I haven't made time for us. I did say too much yesterday. I'm sorry." Eric was happy we talked it out. "Okay, today I'll make your favorite dish, meatball pasta." He started cooking, and then his phone rang. "Who's calling?" I asked. "Oh, it's Melissa. I wonder why," he said. I had a bad feeling about it, but told him, maybe it's urgent. Eric checked with me and then picked up the phone. I couldn't hear what Melissa was saying, but the call ended quickly. "How is Melissa?" I asked. "She said she has something to tell me, so she's coming over now," Eric replied. I was irritated because I didn't want to see her on my day off, but since she was already on her way, I couldn't say anything about it. Eric tried to lighten the mood by continuing with dinner. As he cooked, I sat on the couch, feeling a mix of frustration and exhaustion. I had hoped for a quiet day off, but it seemed that wasn't going to happen. I sighed and decided to make the best of it. Melissa arrived shortly after, knocking on the door with an urgency that matched my bad feeling. Eric let her in, and she walked straight into the living room without much of a greeting. "I have something important to tell you both," Melissa said, her voice serious. I exchanged a glance with Eric, who looked just as puzzled as I felt. "What is it, Melissa?" I asked, trying to keep my voice calm. She took a deep breath and said, "I've been offered a job in another city, and I'm thinking of taking it. But I need a place to stay until I get things sorted out." My heart sank. The last thing I wanted was more disruptions in our already hectic lives. But before I could respond, Eric spoke up. "That's great news, Melissa. Congratulations on the job offer," he said, his face lighting up. "But where do you plan to stay?" Melissa looked at both of us with hopeful eyes. "I was hoping I could stay here, just for a little while. I promise it won't be long." I felt a wave of frustration wash over me. We had just talked about needing more time for ourselves, and now this. But seeing the hopeful look on Melissa's face and Eric's supportive expression, I knew I couldn't outright refuse. "I understand your situation, Melissa," I said, choosing my words carefully. "But we need to set some ground rules if you're going to stay here. It can't be like last time. We need to know in advance when you'll be here, and you need to respect our space." Melissa nodded eagerly. "Of course, Lauren. I'll make sure to follow your rules. Thank you so much for understanding." Eric looked relieved, and I sighed, hoping we could manage this new arrangement without too much trouble. "All right, let's get through dinner first," I said. "Then we can talk more about the details." We sat down for the meal Eric had prepared, and the conversation was mostly light, though I couldn't shake the underlying tension. After dinner, we discussed Melissa's stay in more detail, setting clear boundaries and expectations. As I lay in bed that night, I couldn't help but feel a mix of worry and hope. I wanted to support Eric and Melissa, but I also needed to protect our space and sanity. It was going to be a delicate balance, and I hoped we could manage it without too much strain on our relationship. The days that followed were a test of patience and understanding. Melissa kept to her promise, respecting our space and giving us advance notice of her plans. Eric and I worked on communicating better, making sure to set aside time for just the two of us. In the end, it wasn't easy, but we managed to find a rhythm that worked for everyone. And though it took time and effort, the experience brought us closer together, teaching us the importance of balance and understanding in our relationships. "I'll make Melissa's pasta too," Eric said happily and started cooking. He didn't notice I was upset, and I couldn't understand why he didn't refuse her from coming over. But I thought this was my chance to tell her myself. After 15 minutes, the doorbell rang. Since our house was far from where Melissa was staying, I didn't expect her. But it was Melissa at the door with a big suitcase. I had a bad feeling about this, but let her in. Eric was still preparing lunch, so I asked Melissa, "What happened?" Melissa looked like she was crying and said, "Actually, I got kicked out from my parents' house. They kicked me out because I wasn't working. They said I have no right to stay there. They are such horrible parents, right?" My bad feelings were coming true as I listened. Then Eric said, "What the heck, that sucks. Family is about helping each other out. They are such horrible parents." I was annoyed by what Eric said, but since it wasn't my business, I kept my mouth shut and listened. Melissa said, "You see, I have nowhere to go, so I want you to let me live here." I didn't want Melissa to stay with us and tried to refuse, but before I could, Eric said, "Well, then there's no other choice but for you to stay with us. Luckily, we have a spare room, so stay with us from today." I glared at Eric and he said, "What's with that facial expression? Melissa needs help." I couldn't take it anymore and said, "What are you saying? Don't make this decision on your own. Eric, you're not working, and Melissa, you're not working either, right? I can't support two people on my salary alone." At that moment, something hit me on the head. I didn't know what happened, but then Melissa said, "Eric, don't throw an egg at her." She was laughing hysterically, and when I touched my hair, I felt eggshells. Eric said, "It's your fault, Jessica. Be nicer to Melissa. If you keep having this horrible attitude with Melissa, we're getting divorced. And if we get divorced, you know you'll have to leave this house, right?" Eric looked at me triumphantly, and Melissa looked at me with satisfaction. Since I kept quiet, they thought I was convinced by them. Melissa asked, "Jessica, are you ready to apologize to us? If so, then just go take a shower, and then we can eat the meatball pasta." I prepared to talk about how the three of us were going to live together. Eric happily finished preparing lunch while Melissa snickered at me and relaxed on the couch watching TV. I had something to say to both of them, but instead, I took Melissa's luggage and threw it off the balcony. They were shocked by my sudden action and yelled, "What are you doing? Are you out of your mind?" Eric panicked and told me to go get the stuff I threw out. I replied, "Why should I? This is my house. I won't allow you to do anything anymore." Eric said, "What are you saying? This is our house as husband and wife, so it's my house too. I am letting my sister stay here." I scoffed and laughed, and he asked, "What's so funny?" I replied, "Don't you know that I'm the owner of this house? My mother gave it to me, so you have no right to it." Eric and Melissa looked surprised. They said, "For real? Oh no, that's not right. Even if that's the case, since we're still married, it doesn't really matter, you know." They started mumbling, so I said, "This house is mine. If you want to live with your sister so badly, why don't you rent a house and live with her? Besides, why should I support people who don't work at all? Eric, you worked hard until you quit your job, so I didn't say anything about it. But recently, you haven't been doing any housework either. Honestly, I'd rather live alone." When I told Eric what I had been thinking, he said, "Oh, really? So that's what you've been thinking about, huh? Well, I don't want a wife who doesn't take care of my family and can't even thank me for taking care of the house." As he said that, he took out divorce papers. I wondered how he had them prepared so quickly. My sister-in-law looked at me with a huge grin on her face, and I understood that she was the one who came up with this idea. "I've already written my part, so all you have to do is fill in your part," Eric said. "I'll give you some time to think alone. Since you don't have any other choice, just contact me when you want to apologize, all right?" After they said that, both Eric and Melissa left. I quickly took a shower, completed the divorce papers, and went to submit them. I think my husband showed me the divorce papers to scare and threaten me, even though it was Melissa's idea. "I've already written my part, so all you have to do is fill in your part," Eric said. "I'll give you some time to think alone. Since you don't have any other choice, just contact me when you want to apologize, all right?" After they said that, both Eric and Melissa left. I quickly took a shower, completed the divorce papers, and went to submit them. I think my husband showed me the divorce papers to scare and threaten me. Even though it was Melissa's idea, Eric went through with it. I don't want a husband who would do such a thing to his own wife. A few days later, Eric called and asked, "Are you ready to apologize?" I was really angry. "What are you calling about all of a sudden? Why should I contact you? You're just a stranger to me now." Eric sounded confused. "What do you mean, a stranger? Is there something wrong with your brain?" He didn't seem to understand the situation, so I decided to tell him clearly. "I submitted the divorce papers, and it's finalized. So you and I are strangers now. Oh, and I sold my house already, so even if you try to come back, there's no point. I also quit my job and am starting fresh somewhere else. I sent all your belongings to your parents, and they should be arriving soon. I'm worried if they'll all fit in their small place." Eric seemed clueless about what was happening and sounded like he was arguing with someone on his end. "Anyway, you're the one who suggested the divorce in the first place, right? I have nothing more to say to you. Since I want nothing to do with you, I'm blocking your number. Goodbye." My ex-husband yelled something, but it wasn't my concern. I hung up and blocked his number. A few months later, I happened to visit the area where I used to live. On my way home, I stopped by a supermarket. There, I saw someone who looked like my ex-husband, Eric, working. It seemed like he made a mistake at work, and a younger woman was scolding him. "Oh, how many times do I have to tell you to understand? Don't make me repeat myself," she said while other workers chuckled at the scene. I felt a bit bad for him seeing the situation. He was getting scolded by a much younger woman, and other workers were laughing at him. But there's nothing I can do about it because he's just a stranger to me now. As I watched him, I thought about how things might have been different. If Eric had thought more about how to handle his sister, maybe this wouldn't have happened. Melissa caused so many problems between us, and Eric just went along with it without considering how I felt. But in any case, I'm glad I divorced him. It wasn't an easy decision, but looking back, it was the right one. Now, I am enjoying my life being single. I have more peace and freedom. I don't have to deal with the stress of their constant drama. Since the divorce, I've had more time to focus on myself. I've started new hobbies, met new people, and even took up a new job that I love. I'm in control of my own life, and it feels great. Seeing Eric in that situation reminded me of how much I've grown. I don't have to worry about his problems or his sister's issues anymore. They are not my responsibility. I am free to live my life the way I want, without the constant stress and unhappiness that came with our marriage. So while I felt a bit bad for him in that moment, it quickly passed. I reminded myself that he made his choices, and I made mine. And my choice to leave was the best decision I could have made for my own happiness and well-being. I will never let you divorce him. Yeah, Mom's right. I can't even walk. That's what my mother-in-law and my husband told me. I married my husband Liam because I loved him. Even though we are no longer lovers, I still care about him deeply as family. My mother-in-law was strict in some ways, but she never said anything unreasonable. My husband always defended me. Then one day, he had a big car accident and didn't wake up. While I was busy visiting my husband and dealing with the accident, I checked the driver's recorder. When I saw the footage, I was shocked. I knew I could never forgive my husband. Everything that had happened seemed like a lie. When he woke up and was in a wheelchair, I said goodbye to him. My name is Julie, a 37-year-old housewife. My husband Liam and I got married 5 years ago. I was depressed for a long time because my ex-boyfriend, who had promised to marry me, dumped me. I met my husband at a party my friends took me to because they were worried about me. To marry my ex-boyfriend, I started working as a temp instead of getting a full-time job after graduating from college. My ex-boyfriend was very kind, and I thought I could build a peaceful family with him. But one day, he suddenly told me he had fallen in love with a girl in the same class and broke up with me. He said he would pay me alimony for breaking off the engagement, but I refused and ran away from the house we were living in. My husband was the opposite of my ex-boyfriend. When he arrived at the party, my friends took me for a drink. "Julie, right? I'm Liam. Your friend told me you went through a tough time," he asked me right away. My friend had told him that I was not doing well. "I've been afraid to get close to people since my ex betrayed me. It's been a long time since I've been out to a party like this." "That's great. Here's to taking the first step. I know what it's like to be cheated on. I had the same experience, but it's a waste of time to stay sad. Let's just enjoy today." My heart, which had been heavy for a long time, felt a little lighter. That day, we drank a lot and had a lot of fun. My husband and I exchanged contact information. The next day, he contacted me and we decided to go out for dinner. While talking to him, I could forget about the day my ex-boyfriend dumped me, which used to always be on my mind. After seeing Liam for a while, I no longer thought about my ex-boyfriend, even when I was alone. "I'm happy to see you getting better day by day, and I'm going to keep making you happier. Let's stay together, Julie. I will never betray you." When I heard these words, I knew I could trust him. We officially started dating. Every day was happy and fulfilling. Even though he was the same age as me, my husband was very dependable. When I had a bad day at work, he cheered me up like he did when we first met. My friends were surprised to see that I had become a different person from the one who had been depressed a few months ago. After a year of dating, he proposed to me, and we decided to get married. I was so happy to be able to marry someone I loved so much. When we went to my in-laws' house to say hello, I was so nervous that I couldn't stop sweating. My father-in-law was a man of few words, but he tried to ease my nerves. My husband also showed me pictures from his childhood to help me relax. My mother-in-law was cheerful and true to herself. "I don't know why you're so nervous. I'm not against you getting married. We are going to be a family." She patted me on the back and said with a laugh. Hearing my mother-in-law's words, my nerves instantly relaxed. "I'll teach you how to take care of the house, and I'll be strict with you." "Mom, Julie can do everything well without your teaching. She doesn't need your help." My husband laughed and defended me. My mother-in-law heard what he said and smiled. "I'm just joking," she laughed. My in-laws live far away, but we had a good relationship, or so I thought. At the wedding, many of our friends celebrated with us. I was so happy that I cried all the time. For the first few years of our marriage, we were really in love. I looked forward to my husband coming home after work every day. I got a lot done because I knew a delicious dinner would be waiting for him. My husband's job required a lot of overtime, but no matter how late he came home, he always ate my dinner and praised my cooking. I loved hearing him praise me, so I spent my spare time looking at recipe websites and adding more dishes to my repertoire. During New Year's, we visited my in-laws' house with my husband. My mother-in-law always taught me how to cook. "You should buy an Instant Pot. Try this meat. It's so tender, isn't it? Sometimes she was kind, but more often she was stern. "What are you doing? You're wasting your time. You need to be smart about what you're doing." I used to cook only for my husband and didn't have the skills to cook for others, so it was a learning experience for me. My in-laws were not bad people, and I think I was able to live peacefully with them. But maybe you are happy with just the two of you now. You should have kids soon. The only time I was hurt was when my mother-in-law talked about children. It's not that we didn't want children. Of course, we wanted to have a child, but it wasn't that easy. My husband and I talked about it and decided not to have fertility treatment. Maybe it was our fault for not talking to my mother-in-law about it, but every time we saw her, she would mention the child. "Hey Mom, we have our own timing," my husband would say when he was around. When he wasn't, I just had to force a smile. A few times a year, my parents-in-law would come to visit and stay at our house. I didn't want my mother-in-law to say anything, so when my in-laws came to visit, I cleaned the house from top to bottom. On the days when we ate at home, I made sure everything was perfect. I made more fancy dishes than usual. I was so well prepared that she never said anything about the house, but she still mentioned having children. Each time my husband defended me. As time passed, we were married for 8 years. Unlike when we first got married, we were no longer lovers, but that didn't mean I didn't love him anymore. He was still important to me, and we had just become family. I'm sure he felt the same way. No matter how late he came home, he always ate my cooking. We never had children, but I thought we had a good relationship. I believed that no matter how old we got, we would live together with the same sense of closeness. My relationship with my in-laws hadn't changed, and we still saw each other a few times a year. The only thing that changed was that I could talk back to my mother-in-law a little bit now. My mother-in-law always talked to me about children. "You know what can't be done can't be done," I would now say jokingly. She didn't get angry at me for that. "I know that, but I can't help saying it." "I'm sorry," she would start to laugh with me. Then one day, I received a call from an unknown number. "Hello, is this Liam's wife? Your husband has been in an accident and is in the hospital. Please come to the hospital right now." I was so surprised that I couldn't process what was happening. I immediately took a cab to the hospital. Coincidentally, my parents-in-law were visiting us that week, so in the cab, I called my mother-in-law. "Mom, it's Liam. Something happened to Liam. He had an accident and was taken to the hospital." I couldn't speak properly because I couldn't stop crying, but my mother-in-law understood immediately. She was on a sightseeing tour with my father-in-law, but they agreed to come to the hospital right away. When I arrived at the hospital, my husband was in surgery. He was driving his car when he was hit from behind. The other car was driving very fast, and he was hit hard. The hospital explained that he was unconscious and in critical condition. I broke down in tears, but my mother-in-law said, "I'm sure Liam will be fine. We just have to wait and believe in him." I felt sorry that my parents-in-law were worried about me, even though it must have been hard for them too. The surgery took a long time, but it was a success, and my husband survived. My parents-in-law and I cried in relief. After that, my husband's consciousness didn't come back easily. We took turns staying with him, hoping he would wake up. While my in-laws were at church, I was busy dealing with the accident and other formalities. The police told me my husband was the victim of the accident. The other driver was arrested for dangerous driving. However, the driver claimed my husband was also at fault. I wanted to protect my husband, so I went to the accident scene. The car was so damaged, but miraculously, the drive recorder was safe. I took the SD card and checked it with my laptop. The footage was still there. After that, I headed to the hospital to switch places with my mother-in-law. I was almost there when I got a call from her. "Hey, Lauren, Liam has regained consciousness." She sounded so happy. I rushed to the hospital. "Thank goodness, Liam, you're awake," I heard my mother-in-law's voice when I arrived. My husband was able to talk as if he had just been sleeping. Oh, I was in an accident. I don't remember. When I heard he was awake, his doctor came to check on him, and we all talked to him. My father-in-law also came to the hospital. The doctor said the surgery was a success, but didn't know if my husband would be able to walk again. He would be in a wheelchair for a while and would need physical therapy, but they couldn't promise he would walk again. The atmosphere in the room turned heavy. "Why, I can't walk," my husband mumbled to himself after the doctor left. My mother-in-law tried to cheer him up. "We will help you as much as we can. Let's do our best in physical therapy so you can walk again, right, Lauren?" Instead of agreeing, I said, "No, I'm leaving him." "I want a divorce," I said. Everyone there was surprised by my unexpected answer. "Huh? What are you talking about? In a situation like this, I'll never allow you to divorce my son. You're a heartless woman," my mother-in-law yelled at me. My husband added, "Yeah, Mom's right. I can't even walk. How dare you?" My father-in-law was too shocked to say anything. Then I took my laptop out of my bag and showed them a video. "What if someone finds out?" a young woman asked. "It's okay, we're on break. No one from the office is going to come around here," my husband replied. "Your wife could be watching," she said. There was my husband and the young woman, talking to each other and making out. She was wearing the uniform of the company where my husband worked. From their conversation, it was clear he had been having an affair with her. "What the hell is this?" my father-in-law asked in surprise. No, it was just a fling. There's nothing between me and this woman," my husband stammered, too nervous to explain himself. My mother-in-law seemed at a loss for words, maybe because she was so surprised. I kept quiet and played the next video. "I'm not doing well with my wife. I'm getting divorced soon, so let's get married," my husband said. "Really? Will you marry me?" the woman asked, giggling. "How disgusting. What are you doing, Liam?" My father-in-law, who was always so calm, turned into an angry man. My husband was lying on his face. "Liam, you shouldn't cheat on your wife. Apologize to Lauren. And Lauren, forgive him, okay? Liam's body is like this now. He can't cheat on you anymore." My mother-in-law, who had kept quiet until a few minutes ago, became impatient and started defending her son. "Well, I want you to watch something else," I said, and then I played another video. There was my mother-in-law and my husband. "I want to see my grandchildren's faces, she said. "Mom, don't tell Dad, but I'm thinking of getting a divorce and remarrying. The next one will be young, so you'll be able to see your grandchild soon," my husband replied. "Oh yeah, that's great. But if you cheat on your wife, she'll take all the money," she warned. "Don't worry, I'm making sure she never finds out. As long as I come home and eat, that's all that matters to Lauren. She is happy as long as I eat her cooking. She doesn't seem suspicious at all. I'll play it smart. Don't worry," my husband said. "You are so smart," my mother-in-law praised him. "I can't wait to see my grandchildren." My mother-in-law knew my husband was cheating on me and agreed he should divorce me so she could see a grandchild. This was disgusting. "How dare you talk like this? I don't want this kind of wife or son." My father-in-law's face turned red with anger. My mother-in-law and my husband looked impatient, not knowing what to do. "Which one of us is the heartless one? I'll divorce you for sure. Why should I help you after all you've done? Be happy with your young lover. Goodbye." Wait, Lauren." Ignoring my husband's voice, I left the hospital room. My father-in-law followed me. "Lauren, I'm so sorry," he said, bowing deeply. "It's not your fault. Thank you for everything. Please tell him that my lawyer will be in touch with him." As I walked out of the hospital, the tears I had been holding back began to flow. I wondered how long I had been deceived. I didn't know, but now that I did, I was glad I could leave him. The divorce went through without a hitch. I got a lot of alimony. The other woman my husband cheated on me with was a receptionist at Liam's company. I was surprised to hear she was just 23. They used to meet on their lunch break a few blocks away from the office and then go back separately. The accident happened while my ex-husband was returning to the office alone. I was a little skeptical as to why he had an accident in his car while he was at work, but after hearing the story, it made sense. My lawyer told me that sometimes my ex-husband and his lover would take half a day off to visit her house. He was being very secretive, so I wouldn't find out. I don't think he thought it would come out this way, and because their affair had become a rumor within the company, he had to quit his job. The woman he had an affair with also had to quit. She was young and had no savings, and had to borrow money to pay the alimony. At the same time, we divorced. My parents-in-law also divorced. My father-in-law couldn't forgive my mother-in-law either. I was surprised when I heard from my father-in-law about the news. My mother-in-law had rented a small apartment and was living with my ex-husband after he got out of the hospital. They couldn't afford to rent a handicap-accessible house because they had no money left after paying the alimony. My ex-husband is working on physical therapy, but the chance of him being able to walk again is very small. His young lover left him when she realized he might never walk again. She didn't want to be tied down to someone who couldn't walk, so she decided to leave him and move on with her life. This left him even more devastated, adding to the emotional toll of his physical condition. I've been living alone for a while now. At first, it was hard to adjust to the quiet and the loneliness, but over time, I started to find peace in my own company. I started to enjoy the freedom of making my own decisions and living life on my own terms. I redecorated my home to reflect my tastes and started new hobbies that I had always wanted to try but never had the time for. I've decided to make a fresh start and focus on my career. I am studying to be a certified public accountant. It's a lot of hard work, but I am determined to succeed. I spend hours each day studying, taking online courses, and preparing for exams. If I get certified, I might be able to get a permanent job through a friend's introduction. This could be a great opportunity for me to build a stable and rewarding career. I am looking forward to this new chapter of my life. I feel hopeful and excited about the future. I have learned a lot from my past experiences, and I am determined to make the most of the opportunities that come my way. I will make sure to enjoy every minute of this new journey. I will focus on my personal growth, my career, and my happiness. This is my time to shine, and I am ready to embrace it fully. In addition to studying, I have been taking better care of myself. I joined a gym and started working out regularly. I found that exercise not only improved my physical health, but also boosted my mood and helped me manage stress. I also started eating healthier, cooking nutritious meals for myself, and even trying out new recipes. I reconnected with old friends and made new ones. I joined a few social groups and clubs related to my interests, which helped me meet people who shared my passions. These new connections have been incredibly supportive and have made me feel less alone. I've also been volunteering in my community. Giving back has been a rewarding experience and has given me a sense of purpose. I've helped out at local shelters, participated in community cleanups, and even started tutoring children in math, which has been both challenging and fulfilling. Throughout this journey, I've been journaling my thoughts and experiences. Writing has been therapeutic and has helped me process my emotions and reflect on my growth. Looking back on my entries, I can see how far I've come and how much stronger I've become. I am grateful for the support of my friends and family during this time. They have been my rock, providing encouragement and love when I needed it the most. Their belief in me has helped me believe in myself. As I move forward, I am excited about the possibilities that lie ahead. I know there will be challenges, but I am confident in my ability to overcome them. I am focused on building a bright future for myself, one filled with joy, success, and fulfillment. This new chapter of my life is a testament to my resilience and strength. I am proud of the person I am becoming and look forward to the adventures and opportunities that await. I will make sure to cherish every moment and live my life to the fullest. Apparently, there was a big fire at Company HCL. When I heard the news, it felt like I had been hit on the head with a hammer because that's where my husband works. I hoped he was okay. I called him, praying he had escaped the fire. The phone rang, and then I heard his voice say, "Hello. Eric, where are you? Are you safe?" I asked, my voice getting louder with relief. He sounded annoyed and said, "What's the matter with you? Why are you talking so loud? I'm at work. Don't call me while I'm working." Then he hung up. At least he wasn't involved in the fire, but his response was strange. "My name is Lisa, and I'm 35 years old. I'm a nurse and work has always been the main part of my life. I got married 6 years ago when I was 29. I felt lucky to get married just before turning 30. I met my husband Eric through a mutual friend. We hit it off right away and have enjoyed our married life in company housing. We've been married for 6 years, but we don't have any children yet. I believe we can build a happy family together." Eric is sometimes self-centered, but he's generally a kind and good person. He shows his love to me, and I feel safe with him. However, lately he's been very busy with work, even working on his days off. He seems tired and doesn't pay much attention to me at home. After dinner, he sits on the sofa with the TV on, but doesn't watch it. He looks at his phone all the time, using the TV as background noise. When I talk to him, he only responds with "yeah" or "oh" or something like that. I thought maybe I said something to make him upset, but I decided he was just tired from his busy work schedule. If he was that tired, I would make sure to bring him lunch and prepare dinner every day. I tried to make our daily lunch and dinner nutritious and well-balanced. Then one day, something strange happened. The day before, a coworker called me to ask if I could switch from the night shift to the day shift. So I suddenly had to change to the day shift. I had originally told my husband I would be working the night shift, so I thought I should tell him about the change. But I was busy and ended up emailing him on the same day. I emailed him, saying that I had switched to the day shift and would make dinner and wait for him. But he didn't reply. I thought he was busy at work, so I focused on my own work too. But even after I finished work, he still hadn't responded. He used to reply quickly, even using emojis sometimes. But this time, he only read my message and didn't reply. Is he working so hard, or is this just what happens after 6 years of marriage? Feeling a little sad, I went to the supermarket on my way home from work to buy some ingredients because I decided to cook a nutritious dinner for him again. It was very cold that day, so I decided to make a one-pot dish. I cut up the ingredients and waited for him to come home so I could start cooking right away. But no matter how long I waited, he never came home. He usually arrives home at 8 p.m., but when he finally came home, it was already 10 p.m. "Welcome back. You're home late. Did you have to work overtime?" "Oh yeah, but did you have to work the day shift suddenly?" Yeah. A coworker had an emergency. I was a little late in telling you." "I see. Well, I guess you couldn't help it, but it's a little annoying that you told me on the same day. I might have had plans for a drink or something." "Oh, you're right. I'm sorry." I said that and turned on the stove for the pot. "Oh, you haven't eaten yet?" "No, I thought I'd wait for you." "Well, thanks, but next time you don't have to wait for me." I felt a little sad hearing my husband say that. I waited for the hot pot to boil. It started to simmer, so I served my husband's portion, then mine. I was starving after waiting for him all this time. I was enjoying the hot pot, thinking it was delicious. Then I noticed my husband wasn't eating much. "What's wrong? You don't seem to be eating much," I said. He looked a bit confused and replied, "Oh yes. Actually, I was working late, and a junior colleague bought me a rice bowl, so I'm not really hungry." Okay. You should have told me that before I started making the hot pot," I said, feeling a bit upset. He seemed to notice my mood and said, "Okay, put my portion in the fridge. I'll eat it tomorrow morning," trying to cheer me up. Then he lay down on the couch. A few minutes later, he got up and suddenly said, "I'm going for a walk." That's unusual, I said. I haven't been getting enough exercise lately, and I've been working late, so I need a change of pace, he answered as he began to get ready to go out. I felt a little empty sitting alone at the table eating the hot pot, so I put my portion in the fridge too. I felt like I had eaten too much, and my husband and I hadn't spent much time together lately, so I decided to go for a walk with him. But he refused and said it's not good to move just after eating. He also said he wanted to go for a long walk alone. He ended up going out for a walk by himself. I thought his behavior was suspicious, so I secretly followed him. My fear turned out to be true. Despite my voice, my husband was walking with great enthusiasm. He stopped in front of the park, a bit far from our house. He looked around and seemed to be communicating with someone on his phone. I wondered who he was talking to. A few minutes later, a car pulled in. My husband approached the car and started talking lightly with the person in the driver's seat. It was dark and hard to see, so I couldn't make out much more. I got closer to the car and saw the person in the driver's seat. She had long curly hair and glossy lipstick. It was a woman, laughing happily as my husband got into the passenger seat. He was totally having an affair, right? By the time I thought that, the car had already driven away. I stood there for a while stunned. Then my husband sent me a text message saying he met someone he knew and would be home a little late. Someone he knew just out of nowhere. I didn't believe him at all. He had said he had already eaten and didn't have an appetite, but it was past 3 a.m. when he came home. He didn't even notice that I was awake. He seemed tipsy and went to the kitchen to drink a glass of water. After that, he often worked overtime only when I was on the day shift. We always had a hard time matching our off days, but now it's even harder. Yesterday he worked overtime, and today he has to work on his day off. But is it really work? I wonder if he's meeting the woman I saw that day. I can't help but think about it. I went online to look for information about detective agencies and found myself submitting an investigation request to the most reliable one. I felt guilty about investigating behind his back, but if nothing is going on, I could trust my husband again. So I decided to have them investigate. Waiting for the results of the investigation was really hard. My husband was as quiet as ever, and every time I saw his face, the woman was on my mind. I wanted to get a clear picture as soon as possible. Then something incredible happened. It was Saturday, and I was busy working as usual on the day shift. My husband was also at work on his day off. I was concentrating on my work, thinking that since we were both at work, I didn't have to think about anything else. Then I heard the sirens of a fire truck in the distance. The sound got closer and closer, louder and louder. Just when I thought they were passing by, I heard another siren. It wasn't just one fire truck, but 3 or 4 more. This must mean that there was a big fire nearby. I felt uneasy and worried. Then 2 of my colleagues came back from the hospital room with serious looks on their faces. They were talking about the fire. "You mean the fire?" I asked. "Yes, that's right. There was a big fire at Company HCL," one of them said. At that moment, it felt like I had been hit on the head with a hammer. That was the company where my husband worked. I quickly explained the situation to my colleagues and went to call my husband to make sure he was safe. "Please be safe," I thought as I dialed his number. Even though we hadn't been talking much lately, I always saw him off when he left for work in the morning. I prayed and hoped he had escaped from the fire. The phone rang, and then I heard his voice say, "Hello. Eric, are you safe?" I asked, my voice getting louder with relief. He sounded annoyed and said, "What's the matter with you? You're talking so loud. I'm at work. Don't call me while I'm working." Then he hung up. At least he wasn't involved in the fire, but his answer was strange. There was a fire with several fire trucks on the scene. How could he be working like that? Did he not go to work? Why was he so cold to me when I was worried about him? I was getting more and more angry. Maybe I had been seeing him off just so he could go to another woman since we got married. Then I made a decision. I would leave that house. As soon as I got home, I started packing my stuff. When I looked in the mailbox, I saw that the results from the detective agency had arrived. I decided to leave the house with the results of the investigation. My parents helped me pack my things. The moving company would be here soon too. I had my things moved out right away. My husband didn't seem to know that I knew the truth. I didn't hear from him at night. I guessed he was staying with his lover the whole time. I packed a lot of my furniture and appliances for my single days. The room was almost empty and looked deserted. Staring at the room, I realized I had no lingering affection for this life. For now, I moved my belongings to my parents' house and looked for a new place to live alone. My husband finally called me the next day. "Hey, what's going on? Most of your stuff is gone." Of course, I moved out of that house. What? What were you thinking? When are you coming back? What about my food? What about the house chores? I was in shock. After all this, that's all you think about when it comes to me? While talking to him, I remembered the fire at his company. This guy was with his affair partner instead of going to work. Anger welled up in me. Why don't you get another woman to do that? Huh? What are you talking about? You were with a woman named Michelle today, weren't you? Huh? What are you talking about? I was working at the office. Oh, at the office? How long did you work today? It was a busy day. Even though I was working on my day off, it took me until late in the evening. I see. That's why I was so surprised that you moved out. Why don't you stop lying already? Huh? You lied about going to work, right? I wasn't lying. I was working. What's going on? How can you work until the evening when there was a fire in the office during the day? Huh? When I called you during the day, several fire trucks were dispatched to your company. They were there to put out a fire that broke out at your office. That's why I called you. I wanted to know if you were okay. You told me not to call you at work, and you talked like there was no fire. Well, he started to say. And I have evidence of the affair from a detective agency. There's no way for you to get away with this. You have to go through my lawyer from now on. I'll make sure I get the alimony. Oh no, he said, repeatedly begging for my forgiveness and apologizing to me. But I no longer had any affection for him. I'm sorry, but there's no way to fix this. I'm hanging up now. Wait, he pleaded. I went to my lawyer and demanded a divorce and alimony from him. The divorce was finalized, and he couldn't get away with it because of all the evidence. My husband and his affair partner had to pay me a reasonable amount of alimony. It turned out that my husband's partner was a junior colleague at the same workplace. The news of their affair spread through the company quickly. Having an affair when the company was dealing with a fire caused a lot of negativity among their colleagues. My husband and his affair partner are now getting cold stares from everyone around them, and they feel very ashamed of themselves. They really deserve it. Meanwhile, I moved into my new place and started to rebuild my life. My parents were incredibly supportive during this tough time. They helped me pack up my things and settle into my new home. It wasn't easy, but I felt a sense of relief being away from the toxic environment I had been living in. I focused on my job and took on more shifts at the hospital. My colleagues noticed that I was quieter than usual, but they respected my need for space. Slowly, I started to feel more like myself again. I even picked up a new hobby, gardening. It was therapeutic to nurture something and watch it grow. 2 weeks later, I received a letter from my ex-husband. He apologized again and begged for another chance. He wrote about how much he missed me and how miserable he was without me. But his words didn't move me. I had made my decision, and there was no turning back. I replied briefly, telling him that I wished him well, but there was no chance of reconciliation. I hoped he would find a way to be happy, but it wouldn't be with me. It was time for both of us to move on. One day, I ran into an old friend from college. We had lost touch over the years, but it was nice to catch up. She had also gone through a tough breakup and understood what I was going through. We decided to meet regularly, and soon we became close friends again. It felt good to have someone to talk to and share my feelings with. Months passed, and I found myself in a much better place. The pain and anger I had felt started to fade, and I began to look forward to the future. I even started dating again, taking things slow and enjoying getting to know new people. My ex-husband's affair and the divorce were hard lessons, but they taught me a lot about myself and what I want in life. I learned the importance of self-respect and the value of true, supportive relationships. I knew that I deserved better and that I would never settle for anything less again. Life was starting to feel normal again, and I was grateful for the journey I had taken to get there. It wasn't the path I had expected, but it led me to a stronger, happier version of myself. And for that, I was thankful. Meanwhile, I moved to a new apartment and started living a comfortable single life. The new place is cozy, and I feel at peace here. I've been focusing on myself and enjoying the freedom of being on my own. I hope to meet a sincere man in the future, but I'm not in a rush. I'm taking my time because I want to find someone who truly respects and loves me. My job as a nurse is stable and fulfilling. It keeps me busy, and I find joy in helping others. This stability has given me the chance to focus on my personal growth and well-being without the pressure of jumping into another relationship too quickly. I've been spending my free time exploring new hobbies and interests. Gardening has become one of my favorite activities. It's therapeutic to watch my plants grow and flourish, much like I am. Looking back, I think about how she found out about her husband's affair. The fire at his company was unexpected and shocking, but it brought the truth to light. He shouldn't have had an affair to begin with, and it was only a matter of time before she found out. His actions were hurtful, and the consequences he faced were well-deserved. I've also started reconnecting with old friends and making new ones. It's nice to have a supportive social circle. We often go out for dinners, movies, or just have long chats over coffee. These interactions have been crucial in helping me heal and move forward. I've learned a lot from this experience. I've learned to value myself more and to recognize the red flags in a relationship. I've also learned the importance of taking things slow and not rushing into anything. This time, I want to make sure that my next relationship is built on trust, respect, and mutual understanding. For now, I'm content with my single life. I enjoy coming home to a peaceful, quiet apartment. I love having the time to read, cook, and just relax without any worries. My evenings are often spent with a good book or a movie, and sometimes I treat myself to a nice homemade meal or a dessert. I know that finding the right person will happen when the time is right. Until then, I'm focusing on making myself happy and living a fulfilling life. The journey has been tough, but it has also made me stronger and more self-aware. Enjoying my single life as a nurse has been a rewarding experience. I've grown a lot as a person, and I'm excited about what the future holds. I'm taking one day at a time and cherishing every moment. I know that when I do meet someone special, I'll be ready, and it will be worth the wait. Paul, who was kind while we were dating, started to verbally abuse me along with his daughter, Teresa, after we got married. Despite their treatment, I continued to save for Teresa's college funds. Eventually, a college acceptance letter arrived, and we decided to celebrate, which also coincided with Paul's promotion. When I returned home from shopping, I found garbage bags filled with my books and clothes left in the yard. In the bedroom, Paul, Teresa, and my mother-in-law were throwing my belongings into garbage bags. "Hurry up and leave. We can't invite Grandma over because there's not enough room with you around," Teresa said. "Exactly. We don't need a failure at Hawaii. We'll just take the college funds. Thanks." Paul laughed, shaking his shoulders. "A bottom dweller making $10 per hour. Get out, useless mother." "Bye-bye," my mother-in-law added. Something inside me snapped then. "I'll leave," I said. I went to the yard and carried the remaining garbage bags to the car. Sitting in the driver's seat, tears of frustration overflowed. I bit my lip and vowed not to let this be the end. Remember this, I am Kelly, a 53-year-old housewife. 12 years ago, I met Paul, who was 44, through work. We got along well as we worked together. Paul, who was cheerful and bright, seemed dazzling to someone as introverted as me. When he proposed, I was flustered and wondered, am I good enough? During one of our dates, he revealed that he had a 9-year-old daughter, Teresa. I was surprised to learn he was divorced, but soon grew fond of Teresa, who was affectionate and innocent after meeting her nervously. Our modest wedding went smoothly, and our married life started off well. However, the happy days did not last long. I lost my parents to illness during my student days and was raised by my uncle and his wife, who ran a business after accepting the proposal. I introduced Paul to my uncle and his wife after getting their blessing for our marriage. Next, we visited Paul's parents to greet them. When my mother-in-law learned that I was raised by my uncle and his wife, she seemed clearly displeased. Maybe because of that, she started to make snide remarks to me after we got married. She would come over unexpectedly to nitpick everything. Kelly, there was a hair in the corner of the stairs. The bathroom mirror is dirty. Don't you clean it every day? She would frequently scold. It's outrageous that you work even though you have a small child. These days, everyone works even with small children. I switched to part-time so I could be home when Teresa comes back from school. I gently objected. My mother-in-law glared at me. How dare you talk back to your mother-in-law, insolent wife? I never asked why they divorced, but I could guess it might have been because of her nagging. Come on, Mom. If both of us work, we can save up for Teresa's college funds sooner, Paul said. But as years passed, like his mother, Paul started to verbally abuse me as well. You come back from work halfway through the day, and this is the meal you prepare. Don't you care to comfort your tired husband? I'm sorry, but it's tough to prepare 2 side dishes every day besides the main, I replied. You just want to slack off. Everyone manages to do it, he said. My mother-in-law, who was a full-time housewife, never used store-bought prepared foods and forbade me from using them as well. So I found time to prepare meals in advance late at night or on weekends when the family was asleep. Just when I thought the issue was resolved, Paul started insisting on bringing lunch from home to save money, which of course I had to prepare, and he found fault with that too. The lunchbox contains frozen food, and the main dish is leftovers. You're cutting corners too much. Preparing all the small dishes from scratch is hard, I said. Don't talk back. You're the wife. You know I hate pre-prepared meals. Are you trying to annoy me? Paul raised his voice. No more frozen or ready-made meals from now on. But it's the wife's job to think about the family's health and prepare meals. Do you want to make me and Teresa sick? You're terrible, he continued. I'm sorry, I understand. I'll do what you say from now on, I replied. Arguing back would only lead to hours of nagging, so it seemed better to comply quietly. It meant less time for myself, but it couldn't be helped. I had a hobby that brought me joy. After Paul and Teresa went to bed, I would jot down ideas in a notebook, imagining what it would be like if those things existed. This hobby, which I kept secret from them, was a great stress reliever. As a child, I had received an award for a summer vacation research project, and this was a continuation of that interest. Dealing with complaints wasn't limited to my mother-in-law and Paul. Initially, Teresa seemed like an innocent and adorable child, but as she entered upper elementary school, she began to act selfishly. Her mood swings would dictate whether she was affectionate or demanding extra pocket money. Then she would insult me in front of her friends, ignore me, or worse. Being manipulated by Teresa's moods left me exhausted. Seeing Paul mistreat me, Teresa began to mimic him, finding amusement in it. It was a phase of adolescence, and from Teresa's perspective, I was just the woman Dad brought home. Resisting was natural. If she wouldn't warm up to me, I thought I should try harder to get along with her. I made efforts to understand Teresa's feelings without scolding her harshly for misbehavior. Even when she hurled insults, I didn't snap back, but calmly explained, "It's not right to speak to someone older than you like that." I always attended school events and helped with homework after returning from work. Whenever Teresa was sick, I would take her to the hospital and take time off work to care for her. I had no experience in raising children, but I poured love into her because she was the child of the person I loved and raised her with all my effort. However, it seems my feelings didn't reach Teresa. As Teresa entered high school, she needed a lunchbox. Unlike Paul's volume-focused meals, the appearance and variety were important for a high school girl's lunch. I woke up at 6 a.m. every day, making the lunches with care. "Put fried chicken in tomorrow's. I want a hamburger in mine," they would request, making it quite a challenge. Yet they often came back with their lunchboxes untouched. When I asked why, they would say nonchalantly, "I was in the mood for pasta today," or "I passed by a store and suddenly wanted to eat bread." "I woke up at 6 to make these. I wish you would at least try them," I said. Upon hearing this, both quickly became sullen. "You change your mind about things too, don't you? Don't be so sanctimonious. It's annoying. A mother should naturally make lunches for her children." Teresa's hostile tone hurt me more than Paul's words. "Sorry," I said. When I apologized, Paul became even more arrogant. "Don't get cocky just because you made lunch. It's nothing special. You should be grateful we even eat it every day," he said. Their complaints about too many vegetables or the taste being too strong were the last straw. I felt more sadness than anger. Talking with Teresa and Paul always made me feel miserable. The promise of sharing household chores made at the beginning of our marriage was quickly abandoned. "Even if we both work, you're home by the afternoon. That doesn't really count as working. We get home in the evening. It's only natural for the person with the most free time to do the chores," Paul said. "I'm not free at all. By the time I finish cleaning and preparing dinner, the night is over," I explained, but my pleas fell on deaf ears. Even on weekends, when I asked if they would help, Paul and Teresa would either lay around with their phones, lying on the sofa, or lock themselves in their rooms playing video games. It was as if I didn't exist in their field of vision. "Hey, old lady, make me some tea," Teresa would say. "I want coffee. Bring it to the living room." "I'm playing games with Teresa," Paul would add. Teresa still refused to call me Mom, sticking with old lady instead. "Could you help me a little after dinner? I have a meeting with the Women's Association." I finally spoke up. Paul clicked his tongue in annoyance. "What? Let us rest at least on the weekend. You see we're playing, right? Do you intend to disturb our parent-child bonding?" "Oh, but you're a stranger, so it can't be helped," he said. The word stranger pierced my heart like a blade. "What's with that face? Got a problem?" Paul threatened. "Who do you think allows you to live in this house? A disposable part-timer like you standing up to me isn't 80 years too early." Faced with their attacks, I bit my lip and swallowed my complaints. Though Paul boasts as a middle manager in a small to medium enterprise, his income isn't impressive. He makes more than I do as a part-timer, but that's about it. Paul's dominance might stem from controlling the finances. Before our marriage, I mentioned I'm not confident in managing finances. "Then I'll handle it that way you can relax," he said. Fooled by his cheerful smile, I agreed to hand over my salary to him. He would allocate funds from our combined incomes for living expenses and Teresa's college fund. Despite his salary increasing over the years, our living expenses somehow decreased. Lately, I've been given only $10,000. Half goes to saving for college fees, and the rest covers food, daily necessities, and miscellaneous expenses. I need at least $5,000 more, and I want some pocket money for myself. Housewives don't need pocket money. Put the $5,000 for Teresa's education into the account first. I'll check every month, Paul said firmly. I stood my ground. "Paul, you often buy luxury watches and brand-name suits. You nag me about saving money and are stingy with it. You seem to give Teresa a lot of pocket money. Why can't I buy what I want? I desperately appealed to Paul. I work too. It's ridiculous to need my husband's permission to buy clothes or go to the hair salon. Both Teresa and I have our social obligations. You don't need to keep up with mommy friends. Dressing up is just a waste of money for you, Paul retorted. Teresa also joined in, looking pleased to participate. Children cost money. Stop complaining. Then I'll increase my working hours. The extra can be my pocket money, right? I suggested. Paul was shocked. That's out of the question. You can't even manage household duties perfectly as it is. What if you neglect them even more? Mom would definitely oppose it, he said, mentioning his mother. I gave up on arguing. It was difficult for someone as timid and inarticulate as me to stand up to the two of them. Yet I harbored a faint hope. Maybe if Teresa gets into college and enjoys campus life, her attitude towards me will soften. Seeing Teresa happily going to college with the money I saved, perhaps Paul would respect me more than before. But my hopes were dashed as easily as they were formed. When the heat of the day began to increase, Teresa's acceptance letter arrived. A few days later, Paul came home with news that made Teresa cheer. "Dad, you're becoming a manager. That's so cool," Teresa exclaimed. "I got the provisional notice, but now it's confirmed. My salary and bonus are going to skyrocket," Paul announced. I listened with a disheartened feeling. I knew not a penny would come my way. I was certain I would still be forced to economize as before. "Yay! Buy me an awesome bag to celebrate," Teresa said. "Of course. Let's invite Mom over tomorrow for a celebration dinner. Kelly, prepare a feast. All homemade, of course," Paul instructed. Watching Paul and Teresa call my mother-in-law, I sighed quietly. This time, it seemed like I might be able to spend some peaceful time without any snide remarks. The next day, I went to the supermarket to buy ingredients for steak and soup. Despite the rainy weather, Teresa and Paul were in high spirits from the morning. When I arrived home and got out of the car, I glanced at the yard and tilted my head in confusion. A garbage bag, open and beaten by the rain, was left out. It wasn't there when we left. A bad feeling washed over me as I approached the garbage bag. I was shocked. Inside the bag were my clothes. I quickly tied it up and entered the house to confront Paul and Teresa, only to find my mother-in-law's shoes at the entrance. Hearing noises from the upstairs bedroom, I rushed up to find Paul, Teresa, and my mother-in-law cheerfully stuffing my books and clothes into garbage bags. "What are you doing?" I demanded. "Oh, you're back. As you can see, we're throwing out trash. The old lady's stuff is all cheap," Paul said casually. As they continued their task, I snatched the garbage bag from them. "Stop. Don't do this without asking me." "It's okay. You're no longer needed," Paul replied. The two of them excitedly raised their voices at me, leaving me bewildered. "We've already paid the entrance fee for college, right? And we've saved up the $870,000 for 5 years of tuition. Your role as an ATM is over. Amazing how you saved up with just a $10 per hour wage. It's all thanks to me forcing you to save," Paul said proudly. I stared at Paul, astonished. Why was he speaking as if it were his own achievement? Paul continued, full of pride, "After kicking out the previous wife, I wanted to bring Mom here, but first, we thought of saving up for college. Finding a submissive woman to save up would mean Teresa and I wouldn't need to save. You seem submissive enough and just right to double as a housemaid." "But Dad, you were wrong," Teresa said, puffing out her cheeks. "She couldn't do the housework perfectly, and she lectured me even though she's an outsider. Totally useless." My mother-in-law glared at me in agreement. "We married you, a parentless older woman. You should be more grateful to Paul instead of always complaining." The two surrounded me, saying whatever they wanted. "So hurry up and leave. We can't have Grandma move in with you hogging the rooms." "Exactly. We don't need a failed wife. We'll just take the money," Paul added, pushing the garbage bag toward me. The bottom dweller earning $10 per hour. Get out, useless mother. Bye-bye. Something inside me snapped. Then I'll leave, I said. I grabbed my valuables, transferred my clothes and books from the garbage bags to a suitcase, and left the room. Heading to the yard, I also moved the rain-soaked garbage bags to the car. Sitting in the driver's seat, tears of frustration spilled over. Paul never had any affection for me. To be treated as nothing more than a housekeeper and ATM, how much more could they belittle me? I was furious. Biting my lip, I vowed in my heart not to let this be the end. Remember this, I thought. Eager to escape from those two, I drove a short distance before pulling over to call my uncle without revealing too much. I poured out everything, and my uncle, furious, immediately arranged for an empty room in a singles dormitory for me to use until I found a place to move. I decided to accept his kindness. Fortunately, only my clothes got wet in the rain, so I dried them at a laundromat near the dorm and carried them to my room. As I stored my clothes in the chest of drawers and organized my valuables, I began to feel slightly more at peace. During our relationship, Paul had been truly kind, and I believed I was cherished. Even after his attitude changed post-marriage, I kept telling myself, he's really a kind person. Things will go back to how they were. With Teresa, I thought we just needed time to get along, and with my mother-in-law, I believed it was natural for in-laws to clash. But faced with reality, I finally woke up. No matter how much I tried to make amends or the effort I put in, it was futile with people like them. They would pay for trampling over my feelings. First, I visited my uncle's company to ask for a referral to a good lawyer. I went to the city office to pick up divorce papers and completed various procedures. Eventually, I received a message from Paul stating, I filed for divorce. After I left, neither Teresa nor my mother-in-law bothered to call, perhaps enjoying their life without me. A month of peaceful days passed until Paul contacted me again. I was working on my computer when I saw his name on my phone screen and decided to ignore it. I had been expecting his call, but I was busy. I let it go to voicemail. Soon, Paul's tearful voice came through. Kelly, please answer the phone. Something terrible has happened. After the call ended, my phone kept ringing persistently. Hurry up and come out. Help us. It's going to be bad if it stays like this. He left crying messages on the voicemail and called like a man possessed. Eventually, I gave in and answered the phone. What do you want, Paul? I'm busy. Can you get to the point? Paul hesitated on the other end, taken aback by my sharp tone. Oh, well, I called Teresa's college, he said, sniffling. They said she has withdrawn her enrollment, so she is not a student there. What's going on? Exactly as they said, I replied matter-of-factly. I canceled the enrollment. The prep money's gone, but they refunded the tuition fees to my account, which helps a lot. Withdrawal. Don't make decisions on your own. Paul yelled. Poor girl, she worked hard to get into college. Oh, really? I said, unimpressed. I didn't know, Kelly mocked. With the allowance you gave her, she was busy going to nightclubs and rock concerts until morning. Hardly the behavior of a student. That is, Paul stumbled over his words. I've never seen her study once. So you chose a college where money would do the talking, right? She studied when you weren't looking. College isn't just about studying. You've taken away her chance to learn other things, Paul argued heatedly. Oh, my mistake. It could have improved her twisted character, right? I returned his statement with heavy sarcasm. Why are you doing this? Do you have a grudge against us? Paul asked, bewildered. She told me to get out, called me a useless mother. Who does she think made her college possible? How do you think I felt saving up all that money? I said. Holding on to such words, you're petty. Well, there's money in the account, right? Paul replied. Yes, I said, and the call abruptly ended. Sighing, I returned to my work on the computer. Less than an hour later, the phone rang again. Reluctantly answering, I was greeted by a frantic Paul screaming, "Why can't I withdraw the money from your account?" "So you couldn't." I feigned ignorance. Paul started to rant and rave. I was refused at the bank. Of course, I changed the account holder's name. "You can't just do that." "Ah, no. Kelly, where are you?" Paul's voice sounded desperate, almost begging. "Without money, Teresa will have trouble enrolling in another college next year. Return Teresa's money. Return it. That $250,000 is my money." I scoffed at the absurdity. "If you stop all the lavish shopping you do, you should easily afford your beloved daughter's college fees." "Ah!" Paul was flustered. "I need money because I live at the bottom, so the soon-to-be manager or your beloved mother should take care of it," I said with heavy sarcasm. "I'll have a better salary as a manager, but I'm drowning in debt." "Mom's on a pension," Paul admitted hesitantly. Drowning in debt. I realized he didn't want his weaknesses known. "Both Mom and I are having a tough time, so please at least spare us the compensation," he pleaded. Tough, huh? But I'll be claiming compensation properly later. Take care. I emphasized my point and hung up. The day after being kicked out, I went to the bank and changed the account holder's name, anticipating Paul might try to withdraw money upon learning of the college withdrawal. If Teresa had been serious about her studies, canceling her college enrollment would have been heartbreaking, but given her carefree lifestyle, it wasn't. I chose this route without hesitation. That night, I received a voicemail full of insults from my mother-in-law, which I promptly deleted. Later, through a lawyer introduced by my uncle, I filed for compensation from Paul. Predictably, he resisted. Paul accused, "Knowing I don't have money, demanding compensation is just cruel. Why should I even have to pay? I provided for Kelly, treated a failed wife kindly, and didn't even cheat. What's there to complain about? Running off with the enrollment money is outrageous. If anything, we should be receiving compensation from you." So I thought I'd wait until Paul changed his tune. A few months later, I received a call from my sobbing mother-in-law. "Kelly, please help," she said, her tone as imperious as ever. It seemed her character would never change. "Long time no see. What's the matter?" I asked leisurely, though I could guess the reason. "They're telling us to vacate this house," she said. "Well, it can't be helped. It's my house, after all," I replied. My mother-in-law gasped in surprise. "Didn't Paul tell you? When I got a job, my aunt and uncle transferred this house to me. I invited Paul and Teresa, who were living in an apartment at the time, to live with me, so it's in my name." "This is the first I've heard of it," she sounded dumbfounded. "Is that so?" "Well, anyway, my uncle was furious when he found out I was kicked out and said he'd proceed with selling the house, so I'm going along with it. I'm not kind enough to let the people who kicked me out live there for free." "So you're really going to sell it?" she asked. "Yes, there's a viewing this weekend, so please move out by then," I replied. "That's impossible," my mother-in-law shouted. "I was kicked out in 15 minutes from my own house," I said calmly. "The sale of the house is already decided. It would cause trouble for the real estate agent and the viewers, so please move out soon." "Is Paul there?" I asked. Paul seemed to have been listening nearby and took the phone. "What do you want?" he said. I took a deep breath and replied in a low voice, "Who do you think allowed you to live in that house?" Paul was speechless. "Ah, that's a relief. How does it feel to hear those words?" "Damn it, I'm not paying any compensation." "See if you can get it," Paul yelled. "I was told to discuss this through a lawyer," I said, exasperated. Paul continued to yell. "You with your low salary plan to leech off compensation. Pathetic, but I'm not paying a cent." "Are you sure you want to be so confident?" I asked. I said this with a mix of disbelief and annoyance. "I have plenty of evidence. The abusive words you, Teresa, and your mother hurled at me are recorded and noted. While you forced me to economize, you squandered money on luxury goods. There's no escaping this. A mother saving for her child is natural, and a wife should obey her husband." That's right. If you have something to say, earn more than me, Paul retorted, both making a scene with their vulgar attitudes. Return the college funds, thief. If you really don't, we'll sue you. Suit yourself. Enough, both of you. Teresa tried to calm her mother and Paul over the phone. I'm really angry at her for stealing my important college funds. That's the lowest a parent can get. Teresa, you're right. You're looking forward to college so much. It's heartbreaking. Paul's voice sounded like he was on the verge of tears. But it's okay. There's next year. If Dad becomes a manager, our salary will increase and life will get easier. That's true, Paul shouted with apparent joy. So let's stop begging her. Let's quietly move to an apartment and hand over the house. If Teresa says so, my mother-in-law muttered in a reluctant tone. Be grateful for Teresa's kindness. All right, I'm hanging up now, I said, exasperated, ending the conversation. The next call came the following day while I was having coffee in my uncle's company room. I could easily guess it was about the same matter. Reluctantly, I answered, knowing ignoring them might lead them to show up at the company. What have you done? Paul was sobbing, sniffling, and with a voice like a scream, he asked. My promotion was canceled and I was demoted from manager to regular employee, sent to a subcontracting factory. What's going on? I sighed deeply. It seemed he still didn't understand anything. You know Acme Industries, right? Of course, it's a super famous discount store chain that's expanded overseas. It's also a major client of our company. You've injured its chairman. Huh? Paul sounded dumbfounded. He was actually planning to end the business with your company, but reconsidered out of respect for me so your company wouldn't suffer. You should be thankful you weren't fired. I don't even remember meeting the chairman. The chairman of Acme is my uncle. After a brief silence, Paul screamed in shock. I moved the phone away from my ear to wait it out. You shouldn't have told me sooner. My uncle introduced himself during our marriage meeting, I replied. I was amazed by Paul's lack of attention. He stopped crying and suddenly pleaded, Come on, mediate for me. It's just a little marital spat. If I become a regular employee, my salary will decrease and Teresa won't respect me anymore. No, you brought this upon yourself, I said coldly. Is that all? I'm hanging up. What the hell? Acting all high and mighty when you're just a bottom dweller, he shouted. Just then, someone knocked on the door. Excuse me, President. Oh, I'm sorry, I said. It's fine. I'm about to hang up, I replied, smiling. Ah, I haven't told you. I'm the president of Acme. Huh. The one with annual sales of $700 million. To be precise, the president of the American branch. Paul fell silent. I could almost imagine his shocked expression. That's a bad joke. Weren't you earning $10 per hour just a while ago? The salary slip you found in the bedroom? Look at the date. It's from 12 years ago when I first helped out at my uncle's company, I explained, trying not to laugh. I kept it as a keepsake. The minimum wage has surpassed $14 now. You really are clueless about America's economic situation. Paul, lost for words, soon spat out a resentful remark. Quiet but lucky. You have a rich relative. Even a useless mother can become a president. Do you think the position of president just falls into your lap because you're a niece? I've been developing product ideas for a while. Some of them were approved in Acme's planning meetings and became hit products. I was recognized for those achievements. You were doing all that behind my back, he asked. Do I need your permission for everything? I sighed. I wanted to help my uncle, so I studied business management in college. A few years ago, at his request, I started attending board meetings and management seminars. It's the result of my effort. Paul fell silent again. Teresa's college expenses were covered by the royalties from a patented stationery product I developed. Otherwise, it would have been impossible to manage living expenses and savings for my salary alone. If you have money, then we don't need compensation, my mother-in-law interjected. It seemed Paul had put the phone on speaker so my mother-in-law could listen in. Teresa might be listening too. I learned recently that there's property division upon divorce, right? You're obliged to give half of what you earn to Paul, my mother-in-law said confidently. I couldn't help but laugh. What's so funny, Mother? Property division is not an obligation but a right each spouse has. One can also choose to waive it, I explained. I could almost see my mother-in-law tilting her head in confusion over the phone. I'm refusing it, so not a penny will go to Paul. We can take it to court if you like, but I'm sure I would win. What? Mom becomes the president of Ackman and I get nothing. That's so unfair, I heard Teresa's disappointed voice. Paul remarked, Kelly, being the husband of a president means you can live in luxury. Forget about pride. This isn't the time, my mother-in-law urged Paul. Paul also agrees, right? Mom, Kelly, I apologize for everything. Let's start over. I won't treat you as a housekeeper anymore, Paul pleaded. Mom, I won't call you useless anymore. So come back. I want a high-rise condo for our next home. Faced with their outrageous demands, my laughter turned into disbelief. I can earn well on my own, so I don't need a useless husband. Compensation will be deposited into my account monthly. If you can't pay, your assets will be seized. Take care. Amidst their shouts over the phone, I hung up and blocked Paul, Teresa, and my mother-in-law's contacts. Paul, who had been showing off at the subcontracting company, ended up being fired after causing trouble. Struggling with living expenses, debt, and compensation payments, he now works non-stop at a factory on weekdays and a restaurant on weekends. Of course, they had to move out of the house and now live in a rundown apartment with Teresa and my mother-in-law. Teresa, who planned to enjoy her college life, lost all motivation to study and lazes around at home every day. My mother-in-law, doing no housework, joins Teresa in mocking Paul for his low salary, leading to constant quarrels. Having secretly saved up money, I moved to a luxury high-rise condo and lived a busy life. I was worried about the backlash from other employees for a former regular employee becoming the president, but they welcomed me warmly. My contributions to hit products have played a significant role. Any gaps in my knowledge are covered by the executives. Free from worrying about Paul and Teresa's opinions, I'm glad to live freely. I plan to take care of myself while enriching both my work and personal life. Born into a world where my last name opened more doors than I wanted, you could say I had it all set up for me. My dad's the big boss of a company you've probably seen on the stock exchange screen more times than you've cursed your morning alarm. Yes, that kind of rich. But if you're expecting stories of a golden girl draped in designer clothes and sipping champagne for breakfast, you've got the wrong story. Me, I've always kept it real, with my feet firmly on the ground. Money is nice, sure, but it's not everything. I chose a different path, one that led me to places money can't buy and experiences no gold card can fetch. Charity work, helping those in need, and living a life that's, well, ordinary. That's me, Laura. Not the fancy Laura, just Laura. So there I was, stuck in one of those typical evenings where my friend Amy decided we all needed to get out more. We ended up at this dive downtown, the kind where the beer is cheap and the lights are dim enough to hide your regrets. Amy was all hyped up, going on about some guy she met online. You've got to meet him, Jess. He's totally your type, she kept saying. My type? Since when did she decide she knew my type? Anyway, we're there, and in walks this guy, not Amy's online prince, but another dude, Eric. He was there with some friends, looking as out of place as a cat at a dog show. He wasn't dressed to impress, just a simple t-shirt, jeans, and this easy smile that lit up the room. We got to talking, and it was easy, like really easy. He worked a manager job at a place I'd never heard of, nothing fancy, but he talked about it with this passion that was kind of infectious. You really dig your job, huh? I remember asking, sipping on my third beer. Absolutely, Eric shot back, leaning in. Every day is a challenge, but hey, I'm not here to bore you with work talk. What about you? Amy mentioned charity work. I shrugged, trying to downplay it. Yes, a bit of this and that. Just trying to do my part, you know. That's cool, really cool, he said, and I could tell he meant it, not in a trying to impress you way, but genuinely. The night went on with our group mingling, but Eric and I stuck together, chatting about everything and nothing. It was refreshing talking to someone who wasn't trying to sell me on some investment or brag about their latest acquisition. As the night was winding down, Eric got this look in his eye like he was working up to something. Hey Laura, I know this is kind of forward, but would you want to grab dinner with me sometime, just us? I remember feeling a mix of surprise and excitement. Sure, I said, trying to sound cool about it. I'd like that. On the way home, Amy was all giggles and I told you so. I just smiled, thinking about the evening. Eric was a breath of fresh air in my often too stale world. Little did I know how much things were about to change. It wasn't long before going out turned into hanging out at each other's places, which mostly meant my cozy apartment because Eric's roommates were a circus and a half. One evening, sprawled on the couch after devouring what might be the world's most average takeout pizza, Eric turned to me, his eyes serious, but his tone light. Laura, how do you feel about making this a more permanent arrangement? He asked, crumbs still clinging to the corner of his mouth. I raised an eyebrow. You proposing we split a Netflix account or something more along the lines of a life together? He chuckled, brushing off the crumbs. Well, I was thinking more like a life together, but hey, we can start with Netflix. The simplicity of it, the straightforwardness, no grand gestures or dramatic backdrops, just us in our element. It felt right. Eric, if you're asking what I think you're asking, yes, 1,000 times yes. And just like that, with the aroma of cheap pizza as our witness, we decided to tie the knot. It was swift, sure, but when you know, you know. Telling our families was the next hurdle. My folks, well, they've always been about the as long as you're happy mantra, but this was putting it to the test. Dad with his business empire and Mom the socialite, they had visions of me settling down with someone more in our circle. I broke the news over dinner, the fancy kind where you're not sure which fork to use for the salad. Mom, Dad, I'm getting married to Eric. I said the words quickly, almost tumbling out. Dad paused, his fork midair. Eric, the manager guy? Well, that's quick. Mom simply smiled, but it was a bit tight. Dear, are you sure? This is rather sudden, isn't it? But I was firm. Yes, I'm sure. He's amazing, and we're really happy together. Their skepticism was clear, but so was their love. Well, if he makes you happy, darling. Mom conceded, and Dad nodded in agreement. Eric's parents were a whole different story. We went over to their place, a cozy little house that always seemed to smell like fresh cookies or something equally comforting. Kelly and Jason were as down to earth as they come, and they welcomed me like I had always been part of the family. Eric tells us you're setting a date. Jason asked, passing me a plate of those famous cookies. Yes, we're thinking sooner rather than later. A small ceremony, nothing fancy, I replied, trying to gauge their reaction. Oh, sweetheart, that's wonderful. We're just thrilled for you both. Kelly beamed. Their warmth was enveloping, a stark contrast to the cautious optimism of my own parents. It was clear right from the start that our worlds were different, but the common ground was the genuine happiness for me and Eric. When planning the wedding, we were on the same page. Keep it simple, keep it us. A small ceremony, close friends and family, and an open bar because, as Eric put it, if we're doing this, we're making sure everyone's having a good time. And that's how it went down. A swift engagement, not because we were rushing, but because everything just clicked into place. Amid the whirlwind, there were quiet moments, looks shared between us that said, we're doing the right thing. And we were. We really were. Living with Eric started off as everything I'd hoped for and more. We were like two peas in a pod, making our little corner of the world in that cozy, modern apartment I had rented. It was ours, filled with love, laughter, and a ton of takeout containers because, let's face it, neither of us were winning any awards in the kitchen. It wasn't long before I started noticing how Eric's parents, Kelly and Jason, had this way of dropping hints about things they liked or needed whenever they came over. At first, it was subtle, almost cute. "Oh, Laura, that's a lovely coffee maker. Must make mornings a breeze," Kelly would say, eyeing our shiny new appliance with a gleam in her eye. Or Jason would remark, "This sofa is just divine. Our old one's been giving me a right pain in the back, you know." Wanting to be the good daughter-in-law, I took note of these little hints. I'd surprise them with gifts here and there, a coffee maker for Kelly, a comfortable new sofa for their living room, and so on. Their initial reactions were always the same, a mix of surprise and a little bit of guilt. "Oh, Laura, you shouldn't have. This is too much," Kelly would exclaim, her hands fluttering to her chest. But you know, humans are funny creatures. Give them an inch and they'll take a mile. Those initial protests faded away, replaced by a growing list of subtle hints that were about as subtle as a brick through a window. "Dinner at your folks' place was lovely, dear. Did you see that new TV they have? Crystal clear. Ours is practically ancient." Eric would relay his parents' latest comments, oblivious to the change in their tone. One evening, after I had just dropped a not-so-small fortune on a fancy new TV for them, Eric and I were curled up on the couch, my head resting in his lap. "They really love the TV, babe. You're amazing," he said, his fingers running through my hair. But I felt the weight of their expectations starting to press down on me. "Eric, do they expect us to keep doing this? It's getting a bit much, don't you think?" I asked. He paused, his hand stopping mid-stroke. "What do you mean? They're just happy, that's all," he replied. "Happy or taking advantage?" I pushed back, sitting up to look at him. "It feels like we're their personal shopping service." Eric was taken aback, his brow furrowing. "They're not like that, Jess. They're just not used to nice things, that's all." "But where does it end, Eric? It's like they've got a taste for it now, and they're not looking back," I argued, frustration creeping into my voice. The conversation ended with an uneasy truce, but it was clear we were on different pages. Kelly and Jason's gratitude had morphed into entitlement, and it was putting a strain on me. I loved Eric, but I wasn't about to become a bottomless ATM for his parents. When my dad's company hit hard times, it felt like the rug was yanked out from under my feet. That cushy life, poof, gone. And with it, the whole dynamic of my relationship took a nosedive. The shift wasn't gradual. It was like flipping a switch from daylight to darkness. I had to break the news to Eric and his folks, and let me tell you, that was a conversation I'd been dreading. "Listen, things are going to get tight. Dad's company's tanking and, well, we're in for a rough ride," I told them. I tried to keep my voice steady, but the tremor betrayed my nerves. Eric's reaction was a gut punch. "You're kidding me, right? What do you mean things are going to get tight? You're telling me we can't live like we used to because of your dad's mess." His words were cold, and for a second, I wished the floor would swallow me whole. Kelly and Jason's faces were no better, their disappointment barely hidden. "This is quite the situation you've put us in, Laura," Jason added, his tone full of reproach. Just like that, the warmth and camaraderie we once shared disappeared, replaced by a cold expectation that somehow I was to blame for my family's financial downturn. Moving in with them was supposed to be a temporary solution. Our once independent life was swapped for a guest room that felt more like a cell in the house of two people who now saw us as a nuisance. The atmosphere was charged with tension, every day a reminder that I'd somehow failed them. "We're cutting back on everything because of this," Kelly would remind me, her voice sharp as she served dinner that was a far cry from the lavish meals we used to enjoy. And Jason always had a comment on saving costs. "Make sure those lights are off. We're not running a charity here." But Eric was the hardest to bear. The man I married seemed to have vanished, replaced by someone who saw me as a letdown. "Can't you do something? Talk to your dad?" It's like you don't even care we're living like this. He'd snap, anger flaring over the smallest things. Our conversations, once easy and filled with future plans, were now minefields. Every word I said was a potential trigger for another outburst. I thought marrying you meant security, not this struggle, he'd throw at me during arguments, his words slicing through me. It was clear we weren't just dealing with financial stress. This was a test of our relationship, revealing true colors under pressure. I was stuck in the middle, battling the disillusionment from my husband and his parents while grappling with my own sense of failure. Callie's birthday dinner was supposed to be a cozy family thing in an upscale restaurant, a break from the constant tension, but it turned into the showdown of a lifetime. I should have seen it coming with the way things had been going at their place. We're all sitting there, menu in hand, and I'm trying to keep the peace, just blended to the background. That plan got ruined the second orders started flying. Eric, with a grin that made my skin crawl, goes, "Let's get the steak and lobster for us," and then throws a look my way, 1 part smug, 2 parts cruel. Laura can do with the soup of the day. Got to save where we can, right? They all laugh like it's the best joke they've heard in ages. Kelly adds her 2 cents. Absolutely. Can't have Laura overspending now, can we? I felt a flush of heat, not from embarrassment, but pure fury. Really? Soup? What's this? Some kind of sick joke? I snapped back, my voice sharper than I intended. Oh, come on, Laura. It's just a bit of fun, Eric said, that smirk still plastered on his face. That's when I lost it. Fun? This is your idea of fun. When things are tough, you show how petty you really are? I can't believe I fell for your act, I exclaimed. You could hear a pin drop. The whole restaurant was watching now, the awkwardness off the charts. I didn't sit back down. Keep your fancy dishes and your pathetic jokes. I'm out, I said, standing up so fast my chair nearly toppled over, the noise echoing and turning more heads our way. Eric reached out, trying to play the peacemaker. Laura, don't. Let's not make this a scene. A scene? You think I care about making a scene after that stunt? This is about respect, something you clearly have none of, I said, yanking my arm free and heading for the exit. The weight of their stares was on my back, but stepping out into the night felt like breaking out of prison. My phone was blowing up, Eric no doubt trying to do damage control. I ignored it, my mind made up. I drove back to their place, a storm of emotions brewing inside. How had things gone so sour? Eric and I were a team, or so I thought, but that dinner was a slap in the face, a wake-up call I couldn't ignore. Back at the house, I packed my bags in record time, each folded shirt a reminder of the life I was leaving behind. It wasn't just about leaving a place, it was about leaving a relationship that had shown its true colors. I turned off my phone, cutting off the barrage of messages. The silence was eerie but welcome. That night wasn't just the end of a disastrous dinner, it was the close of a chapter. I had no interest in revisiting after the disaster that was Kelly's birthday dinner. I found myself driving to my parents' house. The night was quiet, a stark contrast to the storm raging inside me. By the time I pulled up to their driveway, my decision was made. I needed sanctuary, but more than that, I needed advice, something only my dad could offer. Walking into the house, the familiarity of it all was both comforting and jarring. Mom was asleep, but Dad was up, sitting in his study surrounded by papers that seemed less important the moment I stepped in. Laura, what are you doing here at this hour? Is everything okay? He asked, standing up, concern etched on his face. I took a deep breath, and the events of the evening poured out of me in a flood. I told him about the dinner, about Eric and his parents, and how I felt like I'd been reduced to nothing but a source of income for them. Dad listened in silence, his expression hardening with every word. When I finished, he sighed, a sound that carried years of experience and a hint of sorrow. Laura, I saw this coming. I just hoped I was wrong, he finally said, his voice steady but filled with empathy. How could I have been so blind, Dad? I thought Eric and I were different, I said, feeling the weight of my naivety. He walked over, putting an arm around my shoulders. You wanted to see the best in him and them. There's no fault in that. But people show their true colors in tough times. It's a hard lesson, but an important one. I nodded, the reality of his words sinking in. But what do I do now? I can't go back there. You'll stay here for starters. As for the rest, we'll figure it out together, he assured me, his confidence a balm to my frayed nerves. Then he shared something that took me by surprise. You know, the company situation isn't as dire as it seems. We're actually on the verge of a breakthrough. It was a strategic move, a way to weed out the opportunists. I stared at him, stunned. So you mean to say we're not broke? He chuckled, a sound that was part relief, part amusement. Far from it, but it was important to see who would stick around when the chips were down. Unfortunately, Eric and his family showed their true selves. The revelation was a lot to process. My anger towards Eric and his parents was now mixed with a sense of vindication. They had revealed their true motives and, in doing so, had freed me from a future of manipulation and deceit. Dad, I don't know whether to be relieved or furious, I admitted. Probably a bit of both, he said, giving me a reassuring squeeze. But the important thing is you're free to make a better future for yourself. I admit it, the emotions battling inside me were both. It's okay, but remember this experience has taught you something invaluable about people and their intentions. Use it, learn from it, he advised, grounding me. Walking up to Kelly and Jason's house the next day felt like heading into the lion's den. I was ready for a showdown, but nothing could have prepared me for the cold reception I got. Eric was standing there, divorce papers in hand, with a look that could only be described as triumphant disdain. Here you go, let's get this over with, he said, practically shoving the papers at me. His parents were hovering behind, barely containing their glee. Finally getting rid of the freeloader, Kelly snickered and Jason nodded in agreement, a smug smile plastered across his face. Eric joined in. Yes, turns out you're just an ordinary dummy without your daddy's money. Thought you'd cry, but guess what? We don't need a tearful mess around here. Their words stung, but not in the way they expected. I felt a bizarre mix of anger and liberation. I looked at the papers, then at them, and without a word, signed where I needed to. As I did, their smiles widened, thinking they'd won, but I had the last laugh. Pulling out a newspaper from my bag, I slapped it down on the table with more force than necessary. Thought you might find this interesting, I said, my voice dripping with unrestrained satisfaction. The headline screamed about my dad's company making a monumental comeback, profits soaring higher than ever. Watching their faces drain of color was a sight I'd pay to see again. Kelly and Jason's smugness vanished, replaced by shock, then desperation. Eric's arrogance crumbled, leaving him looking like a child who just lost his favorite toy. Kelly suddenly switched gears, stepping towards me with arms wide open. Oh, my sweet girl, it's all a big misunderstanding. Let's hug it out. Jason, ever the opportunist, chimed in. Let's not rush things. Sit down, have a coffee, and we can talk this through. And Eric, oh Eric, he was the picture of regret. I was wrong, okay. We can fix this. I want to make everything right, please. Their sudden change of heart was almost comical. Almost. I couldn't help but laugh, a deep hearty sound that felt cleansing. You three are something else, you know that. But here's a news flash for you. I'm done. Done with the lies, the manipulation, and the so-called family that only values me for my bank account. I turned to leave, their protests and pleas fading into the background. They called after me, a mix of desperation and disbelief in their voices. But I didn't look back. Not this time. After the spectacle at Kelly and Jason's house, I was done not just with them, but with the whole sorry saga that had become my life. I needed a fresh start, a clean slate. So I took some time at my parents' place, getting my head and heart back in the game. One afternoon, a couple of weeks after the divorce was finalized, I was out for coffee with Amy, my ever-supportive friend who had been there through it all. Girl, You look like a weight's been lifted, she commented, sipping her latte. I laughed, feeling lighter than I had in months. You have no idea. It's like I can finally breathe again, I said. Amy leaned in, her expression turning serious. So what's next for you, Jess? You have a clean slate now. I thought about it, stirring my coffee absent-mindedly. I'm not sure, but I'm excited to find out. Maybe I'll travel, pick up some of the charity work I had to put on hold. As for love, I paused, giving her a rueful smile. I think I'll give that a miss for a while. Just make sure you're doing what makes you happy, okay? You deserve it after all that drama, she said, reaching over to squeeze my hand. Thanks, Amy. That's the plan. Not long after that conversation, my phone started buzzing with calls and messages from Eric. He was pleading, saying he had changed, that we could start over. His parents even got in on the act, sending messages filled with apologies and invitations to talk things over. Sitting in my room, phone in hand, I couldn't help but laugh. The sheer audacity was almost admirable. Almost. I typed out a response, one I've been mulling over for days. Eric, moving on means moving forward, not going back to what broke you. I wish you all the best, but this is where our path ends for good. Take care. Hitting send felt like closing the final chapter of a book I'd been stuck in for too long, and just like that, I was ready to start writing a new one. The next few months were a blur of activity. I threw myself into my work, took up volunteering with a vengeance, and even booked a solo trip to a place I'd always wanted to visit. Life was full, and for the first time in a long while, it was fulfilling too. One evening, sitting on a balcony overlooking a bustling street in a far-off city, I felt a sense of peace and excitement for the future. I was ready for whatever came next. I realized I'd found what I'd been searching for all along. Peace. The drama, the heartache, the betrayal, it all seemed like a distant memory. My phone buzzed with a new message, but this time it was from a number I didn't recognize. Hesitantly, I opened it. It was from someone I'd met during my travels, someone who made me laugh and think in equal measure. Hey Laura, how about dinner when you're back? No expectations, just food and good company. I stared at the message, a smile slowly spreading across my face. Maybe it was time to open my heart again, but on my terms, at my pace. I looked at the text and replied, yes, hitting send before I could second-guess myself. Looking out at the city lights, I felt a sense of excitement for the future. I had moved on, not just from Eric and his family, but from the person I was when I was with them. I was stronger, wiser, and ready for whatever came next.